I position it specifically so that I'm just off, so it's like right here. Yeah, you should still be able to see my guys. It's the only good part about it. It's not great, so it might as well.
Team call.
There it goes. Thanks.
In case they get a call. Oh, yeah.
For most of it.
I lasted until 8.
It only went in on minutes.
I did it.
Called it day 10.
Yeah, me neither. Still sitting.
I tried to call Kenneth, but I haven't heard from him yet, so. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah.
Get us going.
What do you do?
Just kick right into Mark giving his presentation.
Ready, Bruce?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, go ahead and call the session to order at this time. starting with the work meeting. Welcome everybody and good Tuesday. Yeah. We will have a 1 to 11 on the work meeting, starting with an update regarding Spanish Valley land use planning. Mark,
Right here.
landmark design.
Thank you.
Front and center, please.
Thanks. Do I need to speak into the microphone, or it'll capture?
It'll pick it.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for having us here today. We thought we'd give you a briefing on the project that we've been working on, which is related to the moratorium. That, as we all know, that there's been a 180-day moratorium put on any commercial development along the highway in Spanish Valley, so that we can take a closer look at the needs, meet with people to figure out what the issues are, and come up with ideas. We've have a very simple, short presentation. We've been looking at your existing ordinances, what's in place, and as well as the ones that Landmark Design has proposed for our previous work with the county. In June, the end of June, we met with residents and stakeholders, particularly a group called the Northern San Juan County Coalition, as well as a neighbor that lives next door to the Love's truck stop proposal. And we met with staff. And we last night had a workshop with the public, and it was very well attended. I think we had upwards of 80 people there, and it was pretty good diversity of thought and ideas. It was interesting. The majority, I'd say overwhelming majority of the people were from Spanish Valley. So there were a couple of people that said they were from Moab, or that they lived in Moab but had property in Spanish Valley. Key things that came out in our meeting in June when we reached out with the coalition were sort of 5 topics, and these correlate with what we've been tasked to do in the moratorium. The first was specifically look at the commercial and what we're calling flex development along the highway, what the uses are and where they should be, and how much of it there should be. The other issue that we've been directed to look at is overnight accommodations. As I don't know if you know or not, but Moab and Grand County have put a no longer allowing new overnight accommodation applications in the town and the county for now, and then they're in the next 2-3 months will be coming up with what they call an overlay zone to determine if there's overnight accommodations, what sort of offsets will be required, things that are going to offset the impact to the community. They see hotels and motels as being out of control, and they want to make sure that if they're allowed, that they're in the right places and that they help the community rather than help drive it apart. The other thing was dark skies protection. Landmark Design, we prepared a ordinance that I believe that the County Planning Commission is considering now with some modifications. The coalition came up with their own ordinance that I don't know if they presented it to you or not. It's a variation of the overnight the dark skies ordinance that has been adopted by Moab and Grand County. They see it as being much more achieving the goals of dark sky protection. Our main concern is that perhaps it requires administration and control that the county doesn't have at the moment. So a lot of the discussion last night was, well, we don't have the control now, we don't have the capacity or the resources to enforce some of this stuff, and some of the people in attendance were saying, well, you should. If we're going to move forward, we should make sure that the resources are available. So there's sort of an issue at that point. As far as Love's, we've been, Love's, my understanding is an application has been made. It hasn't been approved. We've been looking at this sort of higher level of, in the future, for commercial development along the highway, should more truck stops be allowed. As far as the actual Love's proposal, it's in some sense got a life of its own because it's been, an application's been made and it's going forward. There was a lot of discussion last night of certain people wanting to say, well, maybe it'll be taken off the table. And I said, I don't think that's likely, but you know, you can pursue that question with the owner or with with Sitla who's selling it. But I said that the issue here is whether or not it meets the requirements of the current zoning ordinance. And Walter, we've been working with him. We'll continue to work with Walter to try to figure out how this fits into the bigger picture of zoning changes. And then there were, from the meetings back in June, just a lot of frustration. They felt like that our scope hadn't been clearly defined to them, that we're only looking primarily at the highway commercial. And they brought up a lot of issues that were valley-wide, in particularly a lot of concern about the planning that had done, as when I presented last time, that we had spent 2 years preparing an area plan for this bulk of the Spanish Valley, and that there's been requests by the coalition or certain members of it that that process be started over again. And in addition to that, concern about the Sky Ranch project, I felt like that it had been done to the benefit of the owner and not consideration of the neighbors. But they're way outside the scope of what we've been tasked with, and I told them we'd report it to you, but that those issues are something that somebody wants to take on. It has to be part of a different study. So what we presented at the workshop last night were based on what we've heard, we came up with 3 options, and we presented them to the people that were there. The first option is existing zoning just stays as it is now. If the moratorium proceeds and nothing is changed, there is no legislative change, then it will just stay in place as it is now. We propose landmark 5 different zoning ordinances, which is in the number 2 option. It's basically as being currently proposed that we developed for the county last year and that have been vetted with the Planning Commission. The third option was taking that second option that Landmark Design had prepared and incorporating a lot of the ideas that the coalition had presented to us. A more robust night sky ordinance, overnight accommodations to limit the overnight accommodations, not necessarily get rid of them, but to either indicate where they should be located, or perhaps outright limiting them. So we need to be thinking about that. That was in the idea that if they've done that in Grand County and Moab, and then people just come over the county line and develop a bunch of motels, hotels, it sort of just brings the problems that have occurred in those communities south into San Juan County. So it's more of that idea of having a regional approach to controlling uses. And then there was a lot of the uses along the highway that coalition wanted were really about small scale uses, the little shops and offices and things that there was actually a request, no big boxes, no big, not really fabrication, that's not on the board, but big uses, job generating type uses. And so there was a lot of discussion amongst the group last night about that some people felt like that should be in smaller locations like are in the current plan internally within the Spanish Valley, where people can go to their office, go to a small store to buy milk, go to a daycare, that sort of thing. And the highway is really about big uses. Other people, particularly those from the coalition, felt the opposite. They felt like that they don't want those types of uses in the Spanish Valley and they shouldn't be there. So that's sort of where we are now, is we're, based on our meeting last night, we're still analyzing the results. And as I mentioned, 75, 80 people attended, and we're going to be working with staff over the next month to 6 weeks. We're tasked to get you a draft ordinances by the middle of September, and then the county then has 2 months to adopt them or to consider them. So we have time in our project or process to then, we don't have any more public meetings, but we will be presenting them to Planning Commission and to the Commission before this is all done. So, we're looking forward towards mid-September at this stage. That's the end of my presentation. Thanks.
Okay. Question?
Mark,
Bruce?
you talked a little bit about, what goes on in Grand County needs to be going on in San Juan County to a certain extent. When we passed the moratorium for construction along the highway, I've spent the last 3 or 4 months on many occasions traveling from here to Salt Lake. And I'm told that there's a moratorium in Moab on building of motels. There's no less than 8 motels under construction right now. I'm confused.
Right.
If there's a moratorium in Grand County and there is motels going up every place, does that mean the moratorium in San Juan County reacts the same way?
Landmark Design was hired by Grant County and Moab to do that moratorium. That moratorium has now been decided. They have adopted no new applications for now, both the county and Moab City, and then they're working towards, again, the idea of an overlay zone so that people could apply, but they have to go through a lot more hoops and hurdles. That's the process that came out of that. When that moratorium started, there were approximately 1,600 motel, hotel, overnight accommodation rooms that were approved to be vetted. That's what you're seeing now. You're saying that they were held up by the moratorium, they couldn't go forward, and then when the moratorium was lifted, that's why you see this rush of development.
So the moratorium,
Well, they were already vested.
They were already
we have the
vested.
moratorium in Moab, but we get everything we want and then we put a moratorium on and extend it
So
into
that is
San
a
Juan
key
County.
question here. So San Juan doesn't have much. Last night we had a small-scale operator of a sort of bed and breakfast type use, and he said there's 3 in the county along the highway there, and they're small scale. They have no large hotels, whatever. So I guess my question as we move forward, if we could get some guidance and input on, is it an outright, because like San Juan doesn't have any, because these are money-generating uses.
Yeah.
But the plan
Job
itself, the
generating
area
businesses.
plan didn't support a whole lot of it because that vision was that along the highway it's more about job creation of real better paying jobs than just service jobs at hotels. And so it was more about looking at not so much fabricating, but distribution and other uses, and using the large amounts of land that were there to have a different type of economy that goes on there, so that people don't have to work 2 and 3 jobs. They can actually get a living wage. And so that was the vision of that highway. The ordinances that we've already developed is that it was giving some idea to bigger scale uses and keeping it by the highway so that the community to the east is protected from it and it's more of just a bedroom community.
Well, it looks to me like if we go through with that plan, then San Juan County really isn't going to see a lot of job growth. They're not going to see a lot of tax revenue come, because people will still be traveling from San Juan County into Grand County to get their groceries, to get their gas, get whatever they need. Grand County becomes the larger beneficiary of taxes and jobs and so forth. I'm confused about our commercial use along the highway in Spanish Valley and how it's going to benefit San Juan County.
Yeah, I think that as the current proposed zoning that we have there really is promoting a wide range of commercial development.
But no grocery stores and
No. Well, they're the larger scale ones that would be along the highway. Any of those sorts of larger scale uses. The smaller scale, the small grocery store where you pick up your, loaf of bread or whatever, we have identified 2 nodes or two intersections inside the community along the Spanish Valley Highway to have those sorts of uses. So they serve, people don't have to drive all the way to the highway for that every day. But for your larger scale uses, that was the vision, was keep it by the highway, have limited control, have access roads off the highway so that UDOT was very happy about the plan because it didn't show an entrance to every single business along the highway, so it becomes more like Moab, where you have to have the traffic get sort of stop and go. That we have 4 or 5 main entrances and have these access roads off to the side, so then people can drive onto the access roads and go back to the businesses that they want to get to.
Did UDOT discuss with you at all any kind of a bypass?
Not as
road?
part of this project.
But you don't know if that's in the future planning?
Well, I know they've planned 2 or 3 options for a bypass, but
I can speak to that a little bit.
Okay.
So they have done some analysis of potential bypass routes. All of them that were in the analysis that was done about a year ago, the bypass would have gone basically from where the bridge is over the river. North of there, probably would have come around the Potash Road and then come across the river at the portal there. But no matter what, all of them spit out on the south end, probably around that South Maverick station there in Moab. So not at most one maybe would have gone south of the new campus location, but that's still pretty far north. You know?
So it sounds like economic growth is still, is the key issue here, as well as that it fits in with what the community wants. And I would say that, that we've heard from different perspectives. When we reached out to the coalition, they were very much about sort of preserving things the way it is now and have, small scale and that. And last night we did hear from other residents of the county that had a different vision, that didn't have a problem with Loves, for example. Didn't have which, that they saw that the highway was a place to have highway type uses. So that's where we're at now, is how do we balance those two, because they're very different.
Sure. I think San Juan County is not necessarily against that idea, and we've tried to help by facilitating some infrastructure needs down there, with the idea that San Juan County would benefit economically down the road with what's going on in Spanish Valley. If it ends up that the county doesn't really benefit, then we didn't get what we thought we were going to when we went to seek grants and loans for infrastructure for that whole area. So I think, there needs to be some consideration given for the county to benefit as much as the residents down there and the coalition benefits. So there's got to be some middle ground someplace, to me.
That's our task. So yeah, I think you're right. It will be, as I mentioned, we won't just prepare a bunch of ordinances and drop them on your table in 6 weeks. We'll be working with Walter and with David and others to try to fine tune it so that we can, as we're moving forward, at least have a process that seems to make sense. And that, because it is a challenge. There's sort of 2 very different visions. And I do like the idea that I disagree with the public who said that the plan should start over. I think that 2-year planning process and the plan that came up for Spanish Valley was superlative. Part of it because it really has a new vision for a different type of community that fits in with the area and still provides opportunities for economic growth and other things, where just picking at it and saying it was bad because I didn't participate in it, it was, I think, sort of unfair.
Right.
And that I would hope that the people that have expressed concern about it will actually take a closer look at it and find specific things that can be changed if it needs to be changed, rather than doing a total rewrite.
question.
Go ahead.
At this meeting last night, was there a majority leaning one way or the other?
It was hard to say. It was mixed. But I would say that I would say that there's a certain faction from the Spanish Valley that really felt strongly that there should be highway development, and a faction that felt that it should be a different kind of development, that smaller scale and you know, just something that was different than that we're expressing now. And so I would say, we didn't take a number. We did ask everybody to tell us if they were, what county they came from. Because that's been an issue in our previous meetings, that there's been people coming that aren't from the county and expressing, you know, their opinion. But I would say it was fairly split, but we're gonna have to do our analysis from our note taking, and we recorded it. We're gonna listen to it again so we can get a better sense of what actually was said. And that's gonna take us a week or two to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
You're gonna put this up on.
Bruce?
Maybe one last question. Have you looked at exactly how many residents live in San Juan County in that Spanish Valley area?
We have the numbers in our plan of who are there now. It's we based it on the infrastructure study that was for water and sewer.
And how many is that?
I don't recall offhand.
300?
I think it's more than that.
400?
400 maybe, yeah. Scoot, were you involved in that?
I don't know how many residents or houses roughly, but not
Well, we could multiply. Do you know how many houses?
230-ish.
So we're talking closer to 700.
600. And can you tell me how many people are represented in this Northern Coalition?
They said that question came up directly last night by a number of participants, and as we mentioned, there were 16 people that attended our previous meeting. They indicated somewhere in the vicinity of 95 people that have signed on.
So is there a way to reach out to the 500 and some people that are not part of that coalition?
There is, but part of our approach to this, the reason that we were, I'd say, fairly criticized last night that we just had a meeting with the coalition. And the reason that we did that is we have limited time on this project.
Mhm.
And we had held extensive public meetings when we prepared the area plan, and several hundred people overall came to those meetings. And since this group had particularly said that they hadn't known about it, they hadn't taken part, we felt like it was fair to have what we call a focus meeting with them to hear what their issues were. And with the caveat that they don't necessarily represent the county or Spanish Valley one way or another. We don't know. But when you have 95 people out of, you know, probably 400 or 500 adults, so it's a quarter of if that's fair numbers, something like that, then they are a significant part of the county, but not
Sure.
but of the Spanish Valley, but not necessarily all of them.
Yeah, not the majority.
That's all math I just did in my head here. So.
Good. Gentleman in the back?
I'd just like to add to what Mark's saying. Out of that coalition, we had quite a conversation about the coalition because it looked like they were officially appointed. And the coalition is not officially appointed. They appointed themselves and then came to Mark and wanted to meet with him. About 53 people of the coalition that I know are all in Pat Creek area, which is about 5-6 miles still farther east of what this area we're talking
Yeah,
about.
Pat Creek was outside of the area plan boundaries. It is impacted. I mean, you have to drive through Spanish Valley to get to Pat Creek, obviously, and so but they are up the road a bit, and that may be part of the reason that they didn't know about the meetings previously. They just didn't, you know, they didn't hear about it. So.
We have to drive through Moab to get to Salt Lake as well.
Yeah.
Well, Moab would like to control
Crawl
Salt
through
Lake.
Moab
Salt Lake zoning too, yeah.
to get to Salt Lake.
I was saying
Any other comments or questions? If not, thank you very much.
Thank Appreciate it. We'll be back.
Presentation, do you have it on hard copy?
Yeah, I should mention, we will get you a copy of the presentation, and we have a much more longer presentation from last night that we'll get you. And all this will be put on the website, and all of our analysis is on the website. And John, do you know the address?
It's ldi-ut.com/Spanish.
And we'll link to
Yeah,
that.
and so we've had that website up and running for 2-3 years now, and you can just take a look at all the stuff we put on there. And there's also a link to provide us comments, so you can just type them in directly, or just call us if you want to.
We'll link to it on our county page.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the abandoned mine closure of the San Juan County. Susan White, State of Utah, Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining.
Thank you. I'm sorry that I didn't have a PowerPoint now that oh, you had to sit up first. So I've got hard copies for you.
Thank you.
I'm Susan White. We're Department of Natural Resources, Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining, in the Abandoned Mine Land Program.
Right
right here. Okay. Great.
He's invisible.
The second page, or the map, it shows where our project is, Fry and Red Canyon. If you, kind of the center of the Highway 95 is the Fry Canyon store. The now closed Fry Canyon store, and our project areas are on both sides of that, south side of that area. In the fall of 2017, we found 63 hazardous openings and 12 transformers. And then we conduct bat surveys because of the value of the mines for bats. And no bats were observed, but we did see signs of bats. And we also had 6 mines with explosives in them. And we reported that to the San Juan County Sheriff, and they apparently detonated or disposed of those explosives. And then in 2018, we conducted cultural surveys. And there are 23 sites, and 11 are eligible to the National Register of Historic Places. And paleontological survey found no invertebrate fossils. So we really try to do our homework before we do any work on these in this mining area. So this fall, we're going to conduct, and it's mainly oriented around human safety because of our mandate. And we'll do machine backfills, hand backfills, gates, polyurethane foam, stone and rock walls, and vent holes. There's 63 openings. Then in Red Canyon at the Markey and Blue Lizard mines, we found 12 transformers, 8 of them on poles, and we've identified them to the 50s and 60s era. And EPA regulations allow us to assume they have greater than 500 parts per billion PCBs, so we will remove and dispose of those as required by the EPA. The funding sources is the BLM, the Office of Surface Mining, which my program gets funded by, which is funded through a tax on coal that's produced, and then the DOE and the Division of Legacy Management are going to provide funding for this project. And the next few photos are just examples and trying to illustrate to you our low impact that we have in this area. Of course, transportation to get block and rebar grates is a big deal, so a lot of it's ATV use, and if they're not on a BLM approved travel management plan, we will be authorized use on the old mining roads. So we will improve them just enough to get an ATV out there and then rake them out and remove that access. The next page, it shows that our contractors use various methods, pulleys, long lines, mules, to get materials to the mines where it's hard to get to them. From our bat surveys, if mines weren't able to be surveyed because they weren't safe or they showed signs of use, and we're going to do a non-friendly bat closure, then we put up chicken wire 5 days prior to backfilling. And the chicken wire, supposedly they crawl out, but they won't crawl back in. Even though we are doing bat-friendly closures anywhere where we found signs of guano or bat use. Probably one of our go-to favorites is machine backfill, where we use a machine and just backfill it, but that's not always practical in all cases, or we have bats or cultural reasons not to do that. So we could do a block wall for those closures and retain the historic feature of the mine, and then, or just block wall and then kind of stucco it with the dirt around, and it really kind of disappears but still retains the opening. And then this, by the way, is Brown's Hole, which is in San Juan County, that we did a project last fall there where there was bats in it, but it was a real ratty opening, so we were having a hard time using a rebar grate. So we put block wall, grates, and then bat fly windows. And this was in Brown's Hole also, where there was a seep. So we put drains and a wall and a bat fly window. The next, I don't know if it's next, but it's a native stone wall, retains the features. Here's a three-dimensional grate where it's hard to even get into and do proper mine closures. And then a bat fly windows on this grate. This was in Brown's Hole also. And where the feature is so ratty we can't even get a grate in, we could put a culvert in and then grate that for bat use. And a shaft grate. Then one of my favorites is this. I'm sorry I don't have a big PowerPoint, but that shows, this is from Brown's Hole, where someone had obviously lived in that mine, or in that opening. He's got drain holes off the front, a nice wood door on the front. There was a mattress inside, so we put up a grate just to retain those features, because we find it interesting and value that historic component of San Juan County. We put a grate around the opening here and retain the head frame on this one. Again, we like that, to have that in the landscape. And then the next picture, which we have a subsidence hole on Radium King Road, and we've been working with the county road departments. We're going to use this polyurethane foam, which is kind of an expensive product, but it really does a good job at conforming to all the irregularities in the mine. And then you put a cement cap on it and then backfill it, and hopefully and the county's going to put another culvert in where it kind of backed up and flowed into the mine. And hopefully we won't have that problem again. And since these are uranium mines, we have safety protocols. This is a radon detector. And then the last is, next year we are proposing to do White and Deer Flat. We've got another about 60, 70 mine openings there. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Question is, the rebars, what's the purpose of?
Mostly for bat use. So the bats, we've got fly windows in the middle, so the bats can fly in and out and still use the mines.
What is being prevented by putting?
It doesn't allow access.
For human?
For humans. That's
Oh.
that's the idea. And we're not. Some of them have gates in them that are locked, but we're not doing any gates out there. We're just putting in the rebar and the fly windows.
Okay.
Okay.
No questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm good.
Next, briefing on the upcoming 2020 Canvas Fair. Where are you at? All right.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Hello, my name is Candace Bear, and I understand it says Tribal Partnership Specialist, but there's actually a lot of other partnership specialists in the census, and we all have a lane, so I'm actually not just here to talk about the tribal side, I'm here to talk about the census overall. One of the first things I do is I first ask, does everybody know what the census is? Yeah, that's it. Okay, that's okay. That's the response I usually get. Everybody goes, yeah, we do. But if you don't, so it's actually mandated in the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, that we do a count of everyone within the United States territory every 10 years. And if you're wondering what is the purpose of this count, why on earth are we counting people? Well, that comes to several things. We were talking about your national funding distribution that happens through the Big Hill, Washington. We're also talking about if there's going to be any designation of new representatives. And we are also talking about planning and development within the United States. So that is what the count actually affects. And one of the reasons that I'm here today is not only to share that information, but to also discuss with San Juan County Commission why it is a good idea to hopefully partner with the census. Right now what we're doing is we're doing local outreach to states, to counties, to tribes, really any entity that is serving a particular population. And the reason we do this is because we understand that when it comes to local outreach, nobody understands the community better than the actual community. So when we're talking about San Juan County, I'm already assuming everybody here is a master expert in San Juan County. Is that correct? You guys know where the best coffee places are? You know where everybody goes to have breakfast? You guys know where the biggest pothole in the road is and where to avoid it, right? Those are all things you know because you live here locally and this is your everyday experience. And that would be the same for me within Fuller County. I know the best place to get the best pancakes are, right? And I'm sure you guys know where to go here in San Juan County to get those. That is something I would not know, so I would have to come here and ask you that. And that is the same way when it comes to counting. You are able to tell us what is the best way to do outreach to you, what is the best way to speak to you, and what is the best way to go about collecting information and data. For some counties, they are going to say, well, you know, it is going to be our county commission. Other counties are going to say, you know what's really prevalent is our school board. Our school board has a finger in every pie. That is actually the person that you want to be working with. So I come here and I ask the same question. And now one of the tools or methods that we use is what we refer to as a complete count committee. And now within a complete count committee, this can be on a state level, this can be on a county level, a tribal level. We also do have education complete count committees. The universities of Utah, not the, but all of them, USU, UVU, Weber, VU, Salt Lake Community College, they are actually forming a higher level complete count committee right now because college students are actually some of our hardest to count populations, given that they're only at their parents' house, maybe 3-4 months out of the year, and the rest of the time they're away at school. So they're actually extremely hard for us to count because then the question comes where they actually are resident at. Is it at their parents' home or is it actually at the college where they're at for the majority of the year? So coming here to San Juan, one of the things we're hoping is that the county will consider forming a complete count committee. And one of the first steps of doing that is first deciding exactly that first question. Is who locally are the groups or the people, the representatives, that are actually working day to day with people? And don't worry, you don't need to give me an answer right now. I will do a follow-up with your commissioners and ask them those questions. But there really is a lot of importance of this. I actually, every time I go somewhere, I like to look you guys up. So we have a tool on census.gov, and it's free to anybody who wants to use it. It's called ROAM, R-O-A-M. And it will give you the breakdown in demographic of tracts within the county. So I decided to look up the area of Monticello. And I found a few facts which I thought were really interesting. And what I want you to tell me is if this is an accurate description of your area. So to begin with, if I look up on Rome, and I look at your area, the average person here makes above $52,000 a year. Is that correct?
I don't think so.
Don't think so?
No.
Getting some laughs here. That happens in Twilla too. Ours is $64,000 a year, which makes everybody giggle up there because that's not accurate. So the question becomes, if that's not accurate, why not? Because if I have somebody in Washington looking up a number on Rome, they're gonna say, man, San Juan is doing so well, look at that. They are making over $52,000 a year on average. Go San Juan. When it comes to grants, when it comes to counting, that's the number that shows up. So if you guys were applying for grants, if you were doing planning and development, if you had any sort of business that was interested in investing here, and this is what they look up, is that an accurate representation of San Juan? No. No, I'm getting a lot of shaking of heads. No. So what is happening then, what that tells me, if I'm looking at that and there was an error of margin there, is that the people who are filling out the census are the people who do make above $52,000 a year. Which means that everybody else is more than likely not filling out the census. So that comes to go into hard to count populations. And when we're talking about hard to count populations, we're talking about people who have a low response rate. So that could be minority groups, that can be children under the age of 5. Why? Because their parents have to fill out the census form for them. That is college students. That is the elderly, because not everybody helps them or reminds them that it's census time, they need to fill out their census forms. So when we're looking at demographics, when we're looking at planning overall as a nation, not every area is being represented accurately, and that becomes a huge problem. Even road development, I can give you a good example. There is a reservation near where I live, and they talk about their road. Their road has a lot of issues. But if we look on the census area, they only have 5 people living on the reservation. But in reality, there's actually several hundred. So when they go to apply for funding, that's one of the first that comes up. Well, how many people live on your reservation? And they'll tell them, well, there's several hundred. Well, no, because if I look at your census data, if I look at your American Community Survey data, there's only about under 10. So why would we invest funding into projects like that if this is what our count is? So self-response is very important, and motivating people is very important to self-respond. And when you look at the bigger picture, especially if we're talking about states, if we're talking about counties, if you don't have that proper demographic, then anything that's being tried for, it always is going to have this barrier, this obstacle when it comes to, is this the accurate information? So today I've come in and, my plea is that hopefully that the commission will consider that for the county, putting together a complete count committee and identifying who are the local partners that are really working with the people. Which areas are the most important? Rural areas are very difficult to count because oftentimes when we're talking about rural areas, they often only have P.O. boxes. And as you know, the census always sends to a physical address. So that becomes with that local outreach. Maybe I know that Joe up the hill, he only comes to get his mail every other week. But maybe if he saw advertisements, maybe if when he goes into the library, the librarian has a census poster. Maybe when he goes to the bank, here's the radio, 2020 census, April 1st, fill out your census form. Then he'll know, hey, I know it's coming. I know I gotta look for a package. I know they're more than likely gonna deliver it to my house or near my house or someone's going to attempt. So I have to keep an eye out. And luckily, we're actually gonna have 4 ways of responding this next 2020 census. We are gonna be doing it by phone, by the paper, the 10 questionnaire that we send out. In person, we call that a non-response follow-up. That's when the census worker comes to your door, knocks on there, you tell them to go away because they're watching reruns of Game of Thrones. But and the 4th way is online, and that is huge. And we're hoping that with the online access that a lot of people will respond, but that becomes another barrier in rural areas, is do they have online access? Even with a phone, it can be tricky to get a signal, it can be tricky to be somewhere long enough that you can even fill out 10 questions. So that is why we come locally. We're coming here and we're asking, what are these barriers? How can we effectively make sure And then when it comes to local outreach, if a complete count committee was established, how can we assist them? We have the tools of training, we have the tools of materials, promotional items. But really, at the end of the day, it is what the local community tells us is effective, tells us what works for them. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question. So how do you deal with privacy issues? People don't want to share their private information.
So, to begin with, that comes with education. I didn't know a lot about the census when I started, and I was very distrustful.
I'm very familiar with the census.
Okay.
I don't want to share, let's say I don't want to share my private information, as I'm not by law required to share my private information. You're making it sound like that it's like a government responsibility that we all have to share our private information, but that's actually not what the census is about. It's simply a head count.
Right.
So it's really grown and expanded over the years.
Yes.
How do you respond to that?
So one of the main things it comes down to is education and why there is a need for that questionnaire. And it's always a hit and miss because that, again, comes down to the self-response. Self-response is free
Right,
choice.
but I don't want to share my private information. It has
Right.
nothing to do with education. I'm fully aware why they want it. I don't want to share it. How do you respond to that?
We can't force someone to respond. And that just comes with motivation. We have to constantly attempt and try to motivate.
So what's my motivation to share my private information?
We always hope for the greater good, and that is why we talk about demographic.
More government funding for the area, that kind of thing?
More government funding for the area, more outreach, even SNAP. If you don't have a count of students, you're not gonna have a free lunch program.
Right.
So that, there are things there that actually do motivate counts. If you are on WIC, if you're using our TANF funding, HUD funding, all of that comes from census data. So a lot of times, some of the jargon I've seen back and forth, and I've seen quite a bit of it, is when it comes to privacy issues, I can tell you this, but I probably put up just as much information filling out a form for a credit card as I do for the census, because I have to put my annual income, I have to put my physical address, I have to put information about my household. So if you've already done those things, your information is already out there, and not by the government, but by a private corporation.
So it's already there, then why collect it in the census, just go collect it through those means?
Because with the census, we count once and only once and in the right place on that April 1st date, and we get it through the self-response from the individual.
But you could get it through the credit card
We
companies.
could, but that,
That'd be a privacy issue.
that would be a privacy issue, and we
so
would
it's
not
really,
go that
so
line.
it's not really out there then.
No, so it's not really out there then. But,
Okay, thank you.
are there any other questions? Commissioners?
I guess the only thing is, you don't have to volunteer the information. But on the other hand, you're enabling yourself not to request service from local government because your money isn't in the pot, so to speak. So that it's your choice. Thank you very much, Candace.
All right, thank you.
See you on the road.
See you on the road, Willie.
Yeah. Briefing from San Juan County Health Department regarding mosquito concern.
All right, my name's Ronnie Neves. I work with the health department. I work as the emergency response coordinator and I work as a health inspector. So just wanted to give you guys a brief update on what's going on with the mosquitoes. So we started monitoring the mosquitoes basically down by the San Juan River. That's kind of where we started. We went down there July 23rd, and we basically pinpointed certain areas where there'd be people that would be, camping or hanging out, and we'd be looking for stagnant water, things like that. So, and we have some larvicide that we took down there and spread around. So we started from Sand Island. We made our way all the way up to just east of Montezuma Creek. So we're not throwing it in the river. We're just looking for stagnant water, looking for areas that are moist. So we've also responded to some calls out east of Monticello. So basically, that's what we're putting out on social media is that we can respond. You know, if you're having a problem, give us a holler. We can respond. We've got some larvicide. We can stop the breeding process for mosquitoes. So. San Juan County has not detected West Nile virus. The only way we really know that is through a veterinarian's note or a doctor's note. So as of to date, we haven't heard anything. So just wanted to let you know that we do work. We've been working with UNHS's health department as well. They do mosquito abatement, mosquito control as well. So we've just kind of been working with them. Just so you guys know, we do partner up with them on issues like this. So, just want to reiterate to control the mosquito population in your around your residence, your homes, things like that. Make sure you guys are looking for stagnant water. Get rid of that. Make sure you guys cleaning up old tires, just junk around the house, outside the house, water troughs, things like that. If you can get rid of all that, that's going to reduce the population drastically. So that's a good tip, just to if you guys are having problems with that. So just to know. Just a quick note: there are no vaccines or treatment for West Nile virus. If somebody was bitten and infected, you more likely just to have like a mild flu symptoms, headaches, aches and pains, stuff like that. So yeah, basically that's where we're at and what we're doing. So, you guys have any questions on mosquitoes?
Question? Gentlemen?
My daughter lives out in West Summit. It was terrible out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of getting a little better with the heat, but they don't have a lot of stagnant water out there. Just why so bad this year?
What? Right. So that's kind of the situation out by Monticello. There wasn't a lot of stagnant water east of it, but there was a lot of like old tires, and there was a lot of old cars and just junk piled up, and so there was a little bit of water hanging around. That's kind of the what was going on.
And grass.
Yeah. So you also want to keep your weeds down, your grass down.
When you got 160 acres, it's kind of hard to get.
It is. Yeah.
I've never seen it so bad anywhere.
Yeah. It is bad this year. So.
They do a good job.
Kenneth?
Thank you, Presiding Chair, and the study that you're doing. I think we've been reaching out to the nation to try to enforce a lot of those ponds that we have on that side of the river.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the commission can draft some kind of a letter that there is a concern within the area, and have the nation enforce their side of the river to have maybe look at those ponds, because they are getting bad, and people are just concerned about that. And I was thinking, as a commissioner, maybe direct David or somebody to draft a letter to the nation, and I can walk it through in some way to have that health department, because we've been sending letters and calling, and so far nothing. So we appreciate that.
David?
Yes.
Have you had any interfacing with the Navajo Nation, and what's your sense of what's going on the other side of the river?
Nope, we've had none.
Yeah,
Navajo Nation. No, we've went in the community, specifically in Bluff, and just talked with some of the residents itself and down in there. And we've there's a community kind of east of Bluff that we went down and did some education. We actually gave them some larvicide and kind of showed how they can use it. You know, the mosquitoes start to get really bad, so that's the only interfacing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ron. Next is landfill budget and operation, something.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
David, John David. All right, I'm Randy Rarick. I'm the manager of the county landfill. I've been there for about 3.5 years. A couple things I'd like to bring to your attention today. There's like 4 topics that we need to talk about. I'll give you just a general landfill overview, how things are today. I want to talk to you a little bit about some closure issues. We'll talk about some equipment issues, and we've got a need in the office for some improvements as well. And I was told I have 10 to 15 minutes, so I'll kind of breeze through this, but if you have questions, I'll be happy to address any questions that you have. So for a little historical information, the landfill has been in place in San Juan County since roughly 1993. I won't get into how it was arrived at, but again, we can have discussions in the future about all that stuff. In the 3.5 years that I've been there, we've made some pretty significant improvements. November of last year, we had a pretty significant price increase. We increased the fees for the tipping fees at the landfill by about 47%. We did that because we were underfunded. There was a state audit that came through, and one of the things that they identified was the landfill was not generating the revenue that it needed, to which we knew that. So we implemented the price increase, and since then it's been pretty favorable. We built that increase into our budget for 2019, and the trending today shows that we'll actually see about an 8% increase over our budgeted revenue. So things are looking good on that aspect. On the expense side of things, we continue to look for ways to save money, and we're being pretty successful there too. If our current status holds true through the end of the year, we'll be operating about 18% under budget. So I think we're checking all the boxes and doing all the things that we can do down there. So overall, pretty good picture. We are operating under an enterprise fund. Enterprise fund meaning we're not reliant on tax dollars for our operation, with the exception of I believe we get $35,000 each year in TRT money. Other than that, we're supposed to be self-sufficient. So historically, the landfill had hit and miss years, but in the 7 years I was able to gather the data, we had about a $400,000 loss, which is why we had to do the price increase. So looking at the price increase, I anticipated our needs over the next 10 years, and that's how we arrived at that number, while also looking at other area landfills and what they charge. We're still significantly under the going rates in other area landfills, but I figured 47% was about as high as we dare go at that time. So that's something that, a couple years from now, we'll have to revisit that. But do you have any questions, anything up to that point? All right, so we're issued a permit, an operating permit by the state of Utah, the Department of Environmental Quality, known as the DEQ, which is a division of the Solid Waste and Radiation Control. The permit that we were given in the original permit stated that we would do closure of our cells on average of once every 10 years. I just told you the landfill started in '93. That makes it 26 years old, and we have not yet closed any cells. Now, the permit needed to be renewed. We applied for a renewal 2 years ago. It took them about 18 months to actually approve the renewal, but they did in March. And in the renewal, we were told that we needed to be more aggressive at closing our cells. So it was modified from a once every 10 years to a every 3 to 5 years. Well, since we did that renewal, we're now approaching our 3rd year, and we have still not done any cell closure at all. The current program that's in our permit is called, for closure, it's called a conventional closure. It's very complicated, it's very heavily engineered, it's very expensive. I included some, I'm not sure all the documents that you got. I gave David some documents a week or so ago to share, but I don't know what you've seen. But I'll just tell you that the anticipated cost for closure of those cells that are ready to be closed is $410,000. There's been a question in the past of how do we do that? Do we hire somebody to do that? Do we try to do it ourselves? We've never been able to get past that question. And how do we pay for it? Now, since that time, there's been some new technologies that have come forward in the landfilling industry. And there's a new type of cell closure referred to as an ET cover. It's an evapotranspir, I can't remember how to even pronounce it. Basically, it's a much simpler way to close these cells, much less expensive. But in order to do that, we have to petition the state and we have to modify our operating plan. So there's a process to get their approval. The state is actually, 2 of the people in the DEQ toured the landfill about 2 years ago, and they actually had recommended that we look seriously at making this change. There were some other things that happened. We got introduced to a company, an engineering firm, IGES, based out of Salt Lake. They kind of specialize in this ET cover change from a conventional to the ET cover. They've done it with several landfills in Utah. And as near as we can tell, based on the info that they've given us, we can take that $410,000 cost and reduce it by about 60% by going to this new type of cover. To do that, however, like I say, we need to petition the state, we need to get an engineer involved, we need to redesign the landfill, and that's going to take money. The estimate that I've gotten this point, not a firm quote, but based on what they've done with other landfills, is going to be about a $30,000 expense. Then you still have the work that needs to be done. Who's going to do the work, move the dirt, do all this stuff? We do not have the equipment at the landfill today to do that. We can buy the equipment and we have the people that can perform those tasks to a degree. We still need to have an engineering firm, do the engineering of accurate depths and of the soil, and then they have to stamp it and turn it back into the state. So we're still at that position. What are we going to do? Are we going to stick with what our permit is now and hire somebody, or are we going to try to do it ourselves? Which I can tell you, the conventional we can't do ourselves. It's way involved. So my recommendation is that we look to this new type of closure. We get with this engineering firm that has the experience, that specializes in this type of thing, and start that ball rolling forward. Obviously, we can't do that today, so we'll, at a future commission meeting, we'll ask for, and I'll need David's help. I can't remember what we need to advertise in the paper and what we need to hold a public comment period on, but basically we'd be looking at a sole provider type of an arrangement with this engineering firm, and then get to that point of making the decision, hire somebody or do it ourselves. If we do it ourselves, we have to buy some equipment to do that. We're talking about $300,000 for if we're to buy used equipment. New equipment, the type of haul truck that you would use to move the type of dirt that we're moving, a brand new cost on that truck is $1 million. We can find them used, 10 years old probably, in the $200,000 range, $250,000 range. We're going to need a better dozer than what we've got. New, they're about $800,000. Used, we can probably find a good used one that's not junk for that $150,000, $200,000 range. But the money needs to come from somewhere. So part of the closure part of the requirement with the state is that we have money set aside in the event that San Juan County goes belly up and walks away from the landfill. And that money is in what's called a PTIF fund, a Public Treasures Investment Fund. And that's liquid cash. And the amount that was in that account as of, I believe it was November of last year, was sitting at $764,000. It was my understanding when I was first hired on and I started stumbling onto all the stuff that we could use that money for closure. But that's not the way the state manages it. The state holds on to that money. They're not going to release that money to you. You need to fund the closure yourself. And then after you've done that and you've gotten everything stamped and approved and the cells are deemed closed, then they will go and take your receipts and they will take that money out of the PTIF and basically refund you the money. But you have to spend the money up front to get that work done. So that money is not available for us to use for the cell closure or to buy any equipment. So any questions about that part of things? Oh, I should say, I guess one of the important things is we do a report to the state every year that has to be turned in by January 15th, I believe is what it is, and that is where we declare how much of our landfill is actually being used to bury solid waste. And there's an area on there to declare your open acreage. And we've had just, I think it was 10 or 12 acres that we've had open, and they audit. There's two different parts of the state that get involved in this. There's the operations side, and then there's the financial side. So when we declare that we've got 10 to 12 acres open, then the financial side comes in and says, okay, based on third-party estimates, what would be the cost to close that acreage? That's where they come up with the $764,000. They audit that every year, and then they send us a letter, and they say the amount of money that you have in your PTIF fund is adequate. Okay? They don't tell you that it's in excess. They just tell you that it's adequate. And so I actually got a phone call from the gentleman that manages that, and he said, we're right where we need to be for the amount of acres that we have open as of that time. Those cells filled up in January. We had to look to move into a new group of cells. We did some reconfiguration, and instead of, it gets complicated, but let's just say that we opened up 5 more acres. Okay, so when I fill out this report in January, now instead of 10 to 12, whatever it was, it's going to be 15 or 16 acres. They're going to do the audit on the money, and they're going to come back and say, you don't have enough money in the account now to cover your open acreage. It breaks down to about $70,000 an acre. So if we're opening up 5 more acres, we need to have $350,000 more dollars in that account by January, March at the latest. They'll actually respond to the audit in March. Now the flip side of that is, like I said, the kind of the bright spot is if we convert over to this new closure, which is going to be less expensive, and we buy the equipment and we get that 5 acres closed, then we don't have to increase the amount of money into the PTIF fund. So there's an incentive for us to do this, but time is running out. Like I say, they're going to look for that report in January, and they're looking for money in March. Okay, clear as mud so far? Any questions on the closure part of things?
Randy, are you saying as an enterprise fund, you can't fund any of this stuff by the money that you make? We can fund it going forward with the price increase. For instance, this year our expenses are going to be about $360,000, and our income is going to be around $750,000. So that's good, but we haven't earned it all yet, and that money is not going to be enough to buy the equipment, pay for the work to get done, and if not done in time, pay for the money to go into the PTIF. What will you be able to do? What will you have money that you'll be able to do? from the enterprise fund?
Yeah, that's a hard question for me to answer. We will have money to
Well,
buy equipment, but are we gonna be able to find the
We
equipment?
need to have a further discussion. You're gonna take
I'm
all
way
of our
over time.
time today at the meeting.
Yeah,
but-
10,
but
15 minutes is
To me, an
enough.
enterprise fund is supposed to be a fund that generates enough money
Right.
to do all of the things that you're saying, and we realized that we'd fallen behind. That's why we went
the
ahead
price
with the
increase.
increase. But
Right.
we're halfway through the year now, so
Correct.
and you're telling us you've got good news on expenses are down, revenues are up.
Right.
So maybe at some point, we need to sit down and have a discussion on how much you're gonna be able to contribute from the enterprise fund, and maybe what the county is responsible for, if anything.
Right. If we move this direction with the new type of closure, there's a history with other locations where they've gone to the state and said, hey, look, we would like to do this. The state says okay, and they say, thank you very much. Now it's not going to cost us $410
Yeah.
to do it, and they say, you're right, so we'll give you some of that money back. But all this is time-based.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, additionally, there is some fund balance in the landfill fund. So there's a little bit of a savings there that probably could tap some of that at least for some of these one-time expenses. So I think we're hopeful that there's not going to be a need for the general fund to have
Yeah.
to supplement.
Okay,
That's definitely the top goal.
okay.
Right. Right, so, yeah, 10 to 15 minutes is not enough for all the things that we need
No.
to talk about. But, so let me just breeze through the equipment thing real quick. I already talked that we need to buy equipment in order to do the things that we're talking about doing. We don't have the right type of equipment. Now, that type of equipment could be used on a daily basis going forward for landfill operations, and it'll enhance our operation. But we don't have that today. Today, we have 20 to 25-year-old wore-out equipment that's breaking down regularly. And it's so old that the last time our scraper lost a cylinder, it was down for 6 weeks because they don't even sell them anymore. We had to rebuild it with pieces. So our fleet of equipment is like that. We're looking at a dozer that's in its condition today is worth $25,000 that needs $50,000 worth of repairs. And after we put 50 into it, we can maybe get 40 out of it. So we're in a situation that, again, do we want to spend our money and buy newer equipment, or do we want to continue throwing money at old, wore-out equipment? I brought that to the commission months ago, and they asked my recommendation, and it's like, man, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, we don't have the money to buy new stuff. We need to look at options here, how we're going to fund that, but we just continue to fix it, but it's a bad deal. I don't think you'd do it personally, but it's where we're at. So that's where we're at. Equipment-wise, we have some issues. The scary thing on the equipment side, if we were to take every piece of equipment, do the repairs, and there's no, I need to say, there are no safety issues here. This isn't equipment that's unsafe to operate. This is just equipment that's wore out and not very efficient. We're talking $204,000 just to do the minimum repairs. On the scarier side, if you were to go and buy all this stuff new, we're talking $5.5 million. I don't think we're in a position to buy anything new. We need to buy used equipment, and we need to shop. We need to buy smart. And when we find it, we need to be able to react quickly to it. I bought one piece of used equipment already, and it took 2 months to buy it. People aren't going to hold on to equipment generally for 2 months while you're trying to come up with money. So I don't know what we could do to try to expedite that if we stumble onto something, but that's just, again, something to consider and a point of interest for you folks. Our scaling system at the landfill is old and antiquated as well. It was put in place in 2004. We're not able to back it up. Something happened within the hard drive. It fires up and it works, but every day we hold our breath as to whether that's going to happen or not. We need to get a new scaling system. We have an invoicing system. They're both standalone systems. I've been working with the company for 2 years and custom designing a scaling invoicing system that'll work for us, and it'll link up to the county's new accounting system, Polaris, I believe is what it is. That's going to be about $17,000 to get that system and get it installed. There are other systems out there just off the shelf. They're about $11,000, but they don't give us any of the customization that we would like, and they don't link up to the county's new system. So there again, rather than throwing it out for bid, I'm here to ask if we can entertain the idea of using a sole provider agreement again with this company to roll out a personalized software scaling invoicing system that will link up to the county. And again, I'll make a formal request for that in the future, but I thought I'd throw it out here and see if you had any concerns or questions about that. So,
well, I'll tell you, you've basically overwhelmed us with the information you've given us. I don't think there's any way we can make any kind of a decision.
No, I knew
unless
that.
you would give some kind of a summary recommendation to David and work with him, and then he can bring it to us at a future date.
Right.
But
right. So
yeah,
that's
as far as I can tell, everything's
Yeah.
broken down, nothing works, and we're in trouble.
close to that. I mean,
Okay.
Only thing you could go back to is the shovel.
yeah, let's hope not. Yeah, so that's why we're here, is to let you know that we have a situation and we're not going to deal with it in 15 minutes. So, yes.
Thank you for the report. This past weekend, actually yesterday, I was down at the El Chita. The Democratic Party had their meeting, and some of the issues that they brought up was the trash bin that they used to have there, and people are asking questions. What happened to the bin or the bill or whatever they're talking about? It sounds like it's really, really needed. And if that's in a radar screen, and then the other one is to re-establish the landfill in Bluff. And I know that was one of the things that we've talked about. And where is that at? And then your other comment about the equipment. As a former D9 operator, I know it's really, really hard to maintain it. Just the hydraulic fluid itself is very expensive, along with the other the fluid that it takes. So I would say that if we have an equipment that's fatigue out there, we want to spend more money on that. So either we get a decent used equipment or a new one or something. That would be my recommendation. But like Commissioner Adams says, get together with David and kind of brainstorm what needs to happen, and then maybe bring it back before us, and it would provide a lot of the cost and manpower off of the county. And I would appreciate that. So again, thank you.
Yeah, we can do that. Did you want me to address the Halchita, or you just want to bring that to my attention?
I brought that to your attention, and if anything is in the works, and that'll be great. If not, we need to do something.
Okay. Very good. Anything else?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Next, discussion compensation issue with public safety officer.
There was one before me, but.
Number 6 before that, Town of Bluff.
Sorry, we got one, number 6 first.
Oh, excuse me. Bluff.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I'm Ann Lepinen, and I'm the mayor of Bluff. We've been working with the Bluff service area to transfer their obligations and assets to the town of Bluff in the attempt to unify all three entities that are working down there. Excuse me. And what we're doing is, at this point, we've signed a transfer agreement. In that transfer agreement, 4 pieces of real estate would be transferred. And when our attorneys looked at the deeds, one of the deeds is for the West Park, and it's parcel C002901500000. And in that deed, there's a condition that this parcel of real property may not be sold, transferred, or traded without the prior written approval of the San Juan County Commission. And I have a copy of the deed if you'd like to see it. If any of the commissioners would like to see it, I'll leave 3 copies. But what we're asking, both the Bluff service area and the town, is that we have the permission of the commission to transfer that property to the town, and that if the transfer is approved, that the transfer not include that condition in the future. I've talked a little bit with Kendall Laws, and we've talked to our attorneys, and I think Mr. Carpenter is aware of the condition that's on there. Any questions?
What was your opinion, Kendall?
So, in talking with Mayor Lebanon, I was a little confused as to why that condition was put on there. It seemed pretty unique. The only thing that I could come up with, and we talked about this, was maybe that because the county was transferring it to a service area, they didn't want the service area to encumber or sell off that property without the county as the overseer of the service district approving that. That was the only thing that we could come up with as to why that would be on there. But now with Bluff having incorporated, it just makes sense to get rid of that. I don't see any reason why the county would meddle in or oversee the ongoing work or ownership of property of an incorporated town or city. And so I think that, I mean, my recommendation is the same as the mayor's.
Where is the property? What was it being used for?
Historically, it was, I believe, just empty property, and then the unincorporated population put some buck and rail fence around it. It has a water source, picnic tables, shade area.
Where is it?
It's right on Main Street across, well, adjacent to the UDOT shed. And it's about 6 lots, maybe 8 lots. And there's no building on it.
Those lots kind of subdivided?
Yes, that's in the Cottonwood edition of the
Yes.
subdivisions.
Yeah. So did the county have some right-of-ways through some of that property? They didn't? Okay.
UDOT is the highway to the south, and to the northwest, and the east is private.
And what has the service area board been doing with the property?
Just making it a nice travel stop spot for people to sit in, picnics, that
So
type of thing.
they haven't really done anything as far as developing or trying to use it?
No, there's a little bit of statuary there that's pretty pricey. Joe Paycheck has a couple of statutes in there, but otherwise, that's the most development, a couple picnic tables.
Okay.
I looked back through all the records on that, and there wasn't any indication as to why that was put there. So I'm kind of the same opinion as Kendall, is that that was probably the reason.
Okay. All my questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stace.
Back to Public Safety Officer.
Thank you, commissioners, for letting me have just a few minutes. And I'm going to bring up a few issues and then also some ideas maybe to help. I know as a department head, I don't like when people just come with problems and, not solutions. So I have a few ideas. Hopefully I can stay to the point, but thanks for your time. I came from Blanding City, as a chief, and applied for the sheriff because I wanted to work for the county. I worked for the county before, and I love the county. And I came here to make a difference, and so I hope I can. Last week I attended the Governor's Public Safety Conference in Davis County. And the governor had lunch with the sheriffs and all the chiefs. And I think 80% of the sheriffs and chiefs have this problem. It's not just San Juan County, it's a statewide problem. And so we thank the governor for changing the Utah retirement system. I think something's going to help. But This is a statewide issue. I just wanted to give some examples of the issue. So San Juan County, our salaries are probably the lowest in the surrounding area. We've lost a few officers recently. Sergeant Mike Palmer, who was a sergeant in our department, he left us to go to Grand County after 11 years of service, and he was making $21.94, almost $22 an hour. He went to Grand County just as a regular patrol deputy with 11 years experience, and they offered him $27.50, so quite a bit more. And just to compare that to a Blanding City officer with 11 years, they make $26.97. A regular trooper with 11 years experience is at $30.10 an hour. And a sergeant for the Highway Patrol, they max out at 8 years. They make $37.50 compared to our 22. So you can see we're way behind in all the agencies. Deputy Adair left San Juan County after 5 years. He was making $19.20, and he left for Moab City for $24 an hour. A UHP trooper with 5 years makes $24.50. Monticello City makes $20.57 with 5 years experience, and Blanding PD is $23.15. So that's just some of the issues that we're facing. The problem with being a little in everybody is you become a training ground. Hiring an officer, it takes time. It's quite a process, and then getting into the academies, it takes. We're just sending 2 corrections officers now. We won't get them back until November, and then we're sending 1 law enforcement officer. We won't get them back till the 1st of December, so it takes months. And then really you don't get your investment back on a new officer for 2 or 3 years after they've been on the job, because it takes field training, and it takes a while to learn the job. So if you're a training ground for other departments, it causes a problem. And it's the same with corrections. We run the jail here in the county, and we steal people out of the jail to bring them on the road. And then other departments steal corrections officers, and there's a current state job open right now that everybody's putting in for, the inmate placement program, so it becomes a problem for the jail as well. Some things we've done in the county to help is we do have the housing allowance for deputies that live up north. I don't know if so they get it's a little more expensive to live on the north end of the county, so they get a $500 housing allowance. I hope that's about $3 an hour. So really those guys that left, it wasn't it was still quite a bit amount, but they get a little bit more on the north end. We did exit interviews with those guys that left, and they're saying, that helps, but that doesn't go anything toward their retirement. That housing allowance, helps live them, but when it comes, everyone's planning for retirement down the year. The housing allowance doesn't help with the retirement. So that was one thing that they shared with us. But that is something. And then what about the officers on the deputies on the south end, that don't get a housing allowance and are responding, reservation and everywhere they can down there, and, they don't get any housing allowance. And then one more issue I wanted to bring up is the dispatch issues with UCA requirements, and we need to hire 2 new dispatchers. And we do need some updated equipment. We had a repeater to go up on this mountain, but right at the time of Jeep Safari, that repeater went out up by Moab, and we had to take the one we ordered and put in the Ball Tower, which is the Moab area. And now we need to order one for this tower to replace it, and they're about $6,000. So there's just equipment with dispatch in our communication center that we need to stay up on, and so that's an issue as well. So the things I came up with, try to help with this issue, because I think, we don't want to just hear problems, is also in these exit interviews when the deputies left, they mentioned that the other agencies have a salary plan. So then they know exactly what they're going to make it this year. We don't have a long-term plan, so they're just up in the air. I think that's one thing that could help. When I left Blanding City, they had a plan. You have to hire somebody to do that study comparison and come up with a plan, but you have to be committed to to fund that to a certain degree. So I think that's one option we have, and I know that would help with the deputies to know where they're at. Another thing I mentioned is continue to foster a good culture. We heard about that. We have good employees here, and I know that everybody wants to stay here. That's where they want to raise their family. So we need to continue to foster a good culture. we're already doing more with less here at the sheriff's office. When I first started working for the sheriff's office, the sheriff had a chief deputy, a patrol lieutenant, and a jail lieutenant. Right now, we don't have a patrol lieutenant. We've done without that for a while. Chief Deputy Freestone is doing a lot. He covers shifts. He's doing a lot of work, just making up for that, that other job. So we are doing more with less currently. One thing that helped, I mentioned the Utah retirement system is back to 25 years at 50%. I think that's a good start. When I started, it was 20 years at 50%, and I probably wouldn't have done this job, especially the way the retirement was, that it just changed from. I wouldn't have done it for that. So I think that will help. Right now, there's a 1-year wait time after officers been retired from an agency. They can wait out a year and then come back and get back into the position. I don't know if politically, if you guys talk to legislators and stuff, if we could politically get involved to change that to maybe a 60-day wait time, at least for rural areas. We have a lot of people from this area that are cops in other areas. If they could retire from that jurisdiction, 60 days and come here and get back home, I think they would do that, and that could help us in the rural areas. I mentioned TRT money on here. I didn't know TRT money could be used law enforcement. I knew that we have that money. I didn't know how much was being used, but I got an email today from John saying the sheriff's office does get $157,000 of TRT money to help with search and rescue and the airplane, and so I didn't know that, but thought that was a way we could help with the problem. I'm currently working with federal agencies, the BLM and the Forest Service, with contracting with them to get money from the federal agencies for the work that we do out in those areas. It's been brought up a county dispatch fee to help with the dispatch problems, issues we have there. So that's something we need to talk and work on. And another thing I brought up is the county's never had a deputy reserve program. A lot of other agencies have reserves. And we've always been the agency that's helped everybody, the Navajo PD, Blanding, Monticello, and now we might be getting to where we're going to have to get some help coming back our way, and so that's something I might have to look at as well. It is really hard to get a reserve, though. If they're making more in their agency, why are they going to come reserve for you, for less? So, and then the most important thing I wanted to mention at the end here is just officer safety. Right now, we're currently running with one deputy on a shift on the north and the south end. It's night and day shift. The 4th of July, we get called to Halls Crossing. With one deputy running the size of our county, you're running all over the place, and you're doing a lot of things by yourself. So it's an officer safety issue. So that's just the issues I wanted to share, and then a couple solutions I brought up. I think the main thing is just getting a plan that the officers know what they're going to be making, and then we just have a county plan like other agencies are doing. So that's my offers to the solution and the issues. So if you have any questions or ideas.
Bruce?
I'm not trying to be controversial or offend you, but number one, do we ever lose any of our upper level people? Is anybody trying to poach them from us, any of the cities or the state or anybody? It seems like they only try and poach the people that have just been through post and have less than maybe 10 or 11 years experience.
Yeah.
So that looks to me like that's where the problem is. It's not your commanders and sergeants, and I'm using the wrong language, but those people are pretty stable, it looks like.
Yeah. They are. A lot of they're going to poach the younger ones. They're going to go after anyone certified, because that's the 2 or 3 months they don't have to wait, and they don't have to be short. But if you look at our salaries, a lot of our upper people, I think the way the salaries have gone in the county is we get behind and then we give a big raise, and then we get behind and give a big raise. So the guys that have been here a while, they actually make pretty good money.
Well, and also that's usually a percentage raise. So the guy making $100,000 compared to the guy making $40,000, that spread continues to grow, and that's always been a problem. I understand that. But I'm just saying, if we're going to try and address the problem, maybe the problem exists at the bottom of the pay scale, not at the top of the pay scale.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you want to deal with that. A couple other things. I know, do we try to cover too much? And by saying that, you got Utah Highway Patrol officers, you got city officers, you've got county officers. A lot of times, I know the situation down at Hall's Crossing, how many troopers showed up to that situation? You say one of our county guys did, but I know there were troopers that showed up to that situation.
Yeah,
as
they
well.
did on that one because it was about 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So there was 2 troopers. But if that happens at 2 in the morning, it's going to be probably us. And then, I mean, we don't have a way to call out. I mean, they probably would, but we don't call out troopers.
So all I'm saying is, our guy was not there alone.
Yeah,
There
in that
were other
situation.
law enforcement people there, so.
And we are very lucky that we help each other, back each other up a lot.
And so how do we capitalize on all of the law enforcement that we have in the county and not just say the sheriff's department is gonna handle everything when we've got partners that can help out, and I don't have solutions. I'm just trying to throw out some ideas, Jason, about
Yeah, I think
what
we
can
have
do.
to.
I think one of the things that we've almost been forced to do is we provide dispatch for everybody.
Yeah.
San Juan County does. The cities don't have their own dispatch. I don't know if the Highway Patrol has their own dispatch. I don't know whether EMS relies on our dispatch, whether the federal agencies rely on our dispatch. But maybe we can't do that anymore. Maybe we can't be the sole provider of dispatch services for all agencies involved. And like you said, maybe there needs to be some fees charged to some of these other agencies to help with dispatch situation. I don't know.
Yeah, the county's done 100% about that. We do that for the Park Service. We dispatch all the ambulances on the reservation, and we take 100% of the cost on that.
Yeah, so, I think there's some areas maybe we can look at, and I think, if you want to come up with a pay scale, I think we've had it in the step and grade type thing, Walter, but to me, you've got to address the lower end of your workforce, and I know that's going to make all the guys who are on the top end mad that I said that, but we've got to deal with some reality here at some point. We can't give a 3% raise every year to the guy making 100,000 and expect the guy making 30 and 40 and whatever to live on that 3%, or we're making the problem bigger.
Yeah, I agree. I just have one plan here from another agency, and they max out, like a regular officer max out after 13 years. Their sergeants max out after 8, and then you get to a point where you hit this salary, and then you kind of max out and get smaller raises. Where I think we've kind of thrown money at everybody, and then we have, which is good to have your command staff, getting paid well, but yeah, we are lagging behind here. So I just think we need some kind of plan like this where we know when you're maxing out, we work to get you to that point, and then after that, longevity, just some kind of plan, I think would help us. So that's my proposal to the issue, and just realizing it is a statewide issue, and we're not the only ones dealing with it. And we have great employees, and they're happy, to be here at the county, and I know that, so.
We've attracted some really good new employees, and we've like
hired,
to keep them.
Yeah, we've hired some really good employees lately that are going to the Corrections Academy, and yeah, we like to keep them and not train them for other people.
Right. So. We still have a program where they sign a contract. If they go through the academy, they have to stay with us for a certain period of time, right?
I haven't discussed that with anybody.
We haven't done it for a little while.
We haven't?
No, we haven't.
How come?
I don't know if that was done away with before I got here, but.
Yeah, we hadn't done it for a while.
We pay, I know if someone's certified, we give them a bonus because they are certified, so we ought to have some contract to keep them.
We have had.
But a lot of the ones we've lost lately haven't been newly trained. I think we're talking 3 to
5 years.
They
11.
I mean, it costs us a lot of money to put them through the academy, and we don't want to put them through the academy so somebody else can snipe them with a higher wage. And I thought we had a contract in place that assured that they would stay with us. If we put them through the academy, they would stay with us for a certain period of time.
And Rick did away with that because he was afraid that he wouldn't attract people that he could get, so it cuts both ways, so. But yeah, that's something else we can institute.
Okay.
So you have some possibilities.
Recruits.
Recruits and also salary increase.
I'm hoping.
Is that my understanding? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, to get the salary study, that would have to, it would come with a price and would, have to have approval from.
The research would need to be done on salary scale comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
Any
you,
questions?
Presiding
Ted?
Chair. Jason, I appreciate that, and I realize that that the struggle that our police officers was going through when I met with the city of Blanding. They were making way much more than what our police officers were paying. So I had a chance to talk to Grand County, and come to find out Grand County is receiving some of our police officers, but they're losing theirs as well.
Yeah.
So, it's a great concern to me because I have a lot of the time that these deputies to go out on the reservation, mainly because of the short staffing on the Navajo reservation. So when we look at certain things, I flew out to Window Rock last week, and while I was doing it, our pilot was struggling with some communication system. And that's when I knew that our tower needed to be upgraded. And that needs to happen, number one. And the other concern is that the Halls Crossing incident. They're lucky enough that the state and other officers are covering the area. But this past weekend, the scanner was just lighting up accidents here and there. Some people lost their lives, and our deputies and our police officers were the first responders to a lot of these incidents. So they do a lot, but yet I think we're really underpaying them. And what Walter brought up, maybe a contract or some kind of an agreement that they build to after they take their trainings, maybe that needs to be reactivated. And the Kanta PD is willing to sit down with you and go through cross-advertising like it's been before. I don't know if you talked with them yet, but they came to Mexican Water Chapter, and they did a little bit of briefing to the community. And they're willing to work with you again. So that needs to happen. I guess through this work session, I'm not going to recommend, but what I would do is maybe ask Walter and David to look into the matter and see how we can boost the morale and also the system with the police officers that we have, to see if we can at least have them here for several years, because we do need them. And some point in time when the Navajo Nation starts delivering their police officers onto the area, it would be good, but at this point in time, we pretty much rely on the San Juan County sheriffs. So that's all I wanted to bring up, and thank you very much once again.
I wanted to say I met with the Navajo Nation twice. Try to meet with them every quarter. I met with them in Bluff. We've I think it's important to have a good relationship with them, and we told them we'd help out any way we can. And we've started talking about, we used to cross-commission deputies, and we're trying to move to a contract where we have a mutual aid agreement. Because when you cross-commission deputies and then we lose them, then we have, and then we hire new people, well, they're not cross-commissioned. So we're trying to work on getting a mutual aid agreement that's just for our department and theirs. And so we're covered that way and not have to worry about each deputy being cross-commissioned. Because if we lose them and then hire new people, then we're in the position we are now. So, yeah, I think it's important. We're going to continue to work with the Navajo Nation.
Well, if need to, just let me know, see if I can be a help in any way.
Okay, I appreciate it. Any more questions?
Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, it would be ongoing arbitration in Spanish Valley infrastructure project. Mr. Laws?
Commissioners, numbers 8 and 9 are both mine, so I'll touch on them, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. So number 8 is briefing regarding ongoing arbitration regarding Spanish Valley infrastructure project. So as you're aware, there are 2 projects that are going on simultaneously in Spanish Valley for the infrastructure. There is the water project and the sewer project. So this is dealing just with the sewer project. Both of those projects have different contractors, different contracts, and they're going at their own paces. So the purpose of me being here today on that item is just to make the commission aware and make it aware in a, so there's a note in a public meeting. The contractor in the sewer project for Spanish Valley has come to their own conclusion that they have been damaged by that project, and so as is allowed in the contract, they are demanding arbitration. And so when we were made aware of that, and in communication with them, we took the situation to USIP, the Utah County Indemnity Pool, and they reviewed it and determined that that was something that they do cover. And so they have assigned an attorney. His name is Bart Kuntz. He's doing work for the county on some other projects, some other land projects. And he's from Goebel Anderson, the law firm Goebel Anderson. And so he is handling that on behalf of, he is representing San Juan County, but the pay for that is through USIP. So there's no cost to the county, and that has been going on for a little while now. I think the demand for arbitration came through shortly after, a couple of days after the last commission meeting, and so then since the next commission meeting was canceled, this has been the first opportunity that I've had to bring it to a public meeting. Again, the cost of that is being covered by USIP, by our policy with USIP. Does anybody have any questions on that?
What's the bottom line that precipitated the arbitration?
So I will address part of it. If we get into too much, I would want to have that discussion in a closed meeting, because it would be maybe talking about some of the details that are still up in the air. But essentially, the argument is that they are losing money on the project because there are so many utilities that are unknown and are in the right of way. And so, the county, obviously, our position is that was something that was already in the contract, and so it shouldn't have been a surprise. And we've been working through change orders with with both contractors in that case, and so, or in that project, and so it's something that's just where we're at.
Isn't the contract state those conditions not to be flexible? You invest yourself time and money to face those types of conditions.
That is certainly the county's
unknown
position.
and should be in the contract.
That is certainly the county's position on that, is that it is. But
Yeah.
But again, that's they have a complaint, and so they have invoked the arbitration clause of the contract, and so that's where we're at. Any other questions?
Oversight. Somebody's part. Okay, next.
So the number 9 is regarding just an update on it's an ongoing litigation with regards to the central assessed tax assessments. So as the commissioners are probably aware, you have your property tax that goes on to people's properties, their homes, their businesses, but the central assessed properties or businesses are businesses who their business, for instance, you have the power companies, Pacific Corp, for example, that they have property that can be taxed in a lot of different counties in a lot of different states. And so the way that the Utah does it is they centrally assess those, and then they divvy out the percentage of the tax that corresponds with the infrastructure in San Juan County. That's what we get from those from the central assessed tax properties. So when the state assesses through the central assessment process, when they assess the tax, the businesses have the opportunity to appeal those decisions. And a lot of them do that. And it's an ongoing process. And so I've actually printed a couple of things out just so that you could see what we're dealing with there and how it breaks down. So prior to 2017, the central assessed appeals were handled differently than they are now, but currently there are quite a few counties that have engaged this firm, Peters and Schofield, to handle the central assessment appeals on behalf of the counties. And so with the recent central assessments for 2019, the new appeals have started coming in, and so I felt like this was a good opportunity to reach out to the commissioners and explain what that process looks like and why we are spending money on some legal fees to defend the tax assessment of the state of Utah. And that's because if the businesses are able to get that tax valuation lowered, then San Juan County obviously loses out on the tax benefit coming into the county. And with this Peters and Schofield, the second document I gave you is just a front page of one of their invoices that we've received. They invoice us quarterly, and you can see that there's an amount and then there's a percentage. So San Juan County is only paying a percentage of the overall bill based on how much of that appeal deals with San Juan County. So, for instance, you can see AT&T Incorporation in 2018. On this invoice, we only paid 2% of that of the billable hours on that project because only 2% of the property was in San Juan County. And you can follow that list down and see how that breaks down. And so I just wanted to bring it in front of the commission so that you were aware of it and you were aware that this is an ongoing project. Obviously, I feel like it's in the county's best interest to continue to do this, because if we don't, then we stand to lose a lot more than we're spending if these companies are allowed or aren't. If we don't stand up and support the state, then the tax numbers are going to go down, and we're going to get less income from those central assessed taxes. Anyway, it was mostly an information item for the commission so that you were aware of that. If you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them.
We've done this in the past, rather than try and take on the big companies that try to appeal their valuation. We join with other counties and end up only having to do a percentage. So it's a good thing for the county. The only bad thing is that most of them that appeal to the state, I don't know that the state's ever ruled in favor of the county yet.
There are, so we have a couple of these that are from the 2017 and 18 appeals that are actually going to trial in the district court in September of this year, because the counties didn't agree with what the state did, and so it's gone to the district court. But yeah, a lot of times it comes down to a settlement, and the county, for instance, the county has paid back in refund form some of the money, but I think it's been a lot less than it would be if we weren't contesting it. And so that's why I think it's still a good deal for the counties to continue to do that. The only county that, to my knowledge, the only county that handles these central assessment appeals by themselves is Salt Lake County. And that's because their office is big enough that they can do something like that. All of the other counties, even a lot of your urban counties, your northern Utah counties, are still going with firms to do that because it is such a special market.
My recommendation would be that we continue with the process the way we have been, because if we don't, then we've got to fund it all ourselves.
Yeah.
And right now we're paying 2% of the bill. So.
Yeah. The most that we paid on this invoice was, I think, a 19%, and that was the Mid-America Pipeline, and that's just because, but that corresponds with the fact that we would be getting roughly 19% of what they pay into the central assessment. So we stand to lose a lot there. That's why we're paying 19%. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Turn the chair back to Mr. Kenneth Marable.
We still got two things on the work meeting. Got Jerry and Nick.
Oh, we still got Jerry McNeely and Nick Sander.
Go ahead. Which one?
Jerry McNeely.
Here.
Spanish Valley update.
I'm here.
Good. Come on up.
From the northern end.
SNS.
Willie, Kenneth, how's it going?
Good.
How's everybody?
Bow tie man.
Well, not quite. It's good to see all you guys and your smiley faces and etc. I'll try to hurry through this because Willie doesn't like me to talk very long, so I'll hustle right along, Will. Make it fast.
Get up.
Is that for real?
Yeah. What is that there?
Somebody's trying to play
7th
music.
Cavalry?
Right in my talk, too. Okay, I'm summing this all up. So groundwater and sewer for Grant County. I attended 4 meetings, and there are night meetings. I just want you guys to know that. They are late meetings.
You can't
So-
have a day meeting in Moab, it's 105 degrees.
Yeah, and another thing, it's 105 and up. Anyway, this is a record, so I brought this to show you. This has never happened. This is Ken's Lake, Willie, where you can go fishing anytime you want to. Catch big fish. And as you can see, the flat part, that means we haven't used any water out of it. And that is the first time that's ever happened. Usually, as you can see the graph, it usually goes way down. You want one of these days? Sure. And so that's quite a record for us. And we're hoping we can sneak one more month out. If we can get to the end of this month without that going down, then we've really accomplished a lot. But that also shows you what the snowfall was and everything we had on the LaSalle's, you know. So, and Ken's Lake is in San Juan County. San Juan residents use it. It's turned into not only irrigation, but it's also turned into a a large recreational facility where people go in the summertime when it's 115 degrees. The San Juan Water and Sewer, I went to one meeting. It went very good. Everything's going good except for some little hiccups here and there, but we'll get them solved. We have a meeting not this week, but next week. So I'll be going to that. I've been getting a lot of calls on the dust and because of our construction, which I have to explain to them, you know, when you have construction and now that it's summer, it's hot and everything. So I've been getting a lot of phone calls on roads and dust and dirt and such as that. I had a meeting on self-help homes. No problems there. Everything is going good with self-help homes. We haven't had our opening yet. When we do, I'll let you guys know so you can go and see what this is all about.
When's the meeting and where at?
Which one?
The meeting you just already mentioned.
Self-help home, we haven't had it yet, the opening.
Okay.
Okay? It was scheduled for August, sometime in August, but I'll have to get back to you guys because it might fall in between the meetings where, see, I was gonna have my people come and talk to you, but they haven't been able to do that because we canceled out last week when you guys were gone, so when they come, we'll set that up, okay? And then I'll get back to you if the grand opening is sooner than our meetings and stuff, then I'll get back to you so you guys can attend the grand opening so you can see just what self-help homes do, okay? I attended an AOG meeting in Price for Bruce. Everything went well. Had I not showed up in Bruce's place, they would not had a quorum, and so the meeting would have not been for naught. So I did.
AOG is what?
Association of Counties, County Governments, it's held in Price. You have commissioners go there and mayors. Is that commissioners and mayors? Is that all it is? And they have a revolving loan fund that you're involved in. And I go to that for Bruce due to the fact that when I was on the Grand County Council, I did that for 8 years. Worked with AOG and CDBG and revolving loan funds. So I'm qualified to do that. And they also have where if you vote, you can, because of my qualifications. So that's why I go for AOG.
But they didn't recognize you as a quorum.
Yeah, they should have. They should have, Kenneth. If they didn't, they should have. Because it was a quorum. Oh, they had to because we went along with the meeting. Okay, that takes care of all my meetings. Let's see. I went to the meeting last night. It was probably one of the best meetings we've had with Landmark and the people from Spanish Valley, and it was a little bit more balanced. It went really good. There's a lot of good thoughts put in it. We got some some people are worried about your moratorium due to the fact that they have already bought commercial land, and they don't want that to go away because that would hurt them very much because they put out big bucks for that commercial land. That's about the biggest thing that came out of all of it was about the moratorium part of it was worrying about that. But we had some really good. When you guys see all the notes that Mark and them put together, you're going to find out that it was one of the better meetings that we've had. It was a good meeting. I was quite proud of the meeting. So, and like I said, that's probably 80, 90 people there all together. Pretty much. We had a lot of people there that we've actually started. We're actually doing the water and sewer to, which some of them people haven't showed up, but we did have them show up this time. So that made quite a bit of difference. It was a very positive meeting as far as I'm concerned. And I'm the one that does the public affairs part of this. Okay. Sitla, I went on a field trip with Sitla to check out where they put the new bathrooms and all that stuff on our parking areas on Lower 2 Mile, which was very nice. They've done a very good job. It's to our benefit that they've done this, and they were needed very much. And so I went on a field trip with them to check that out, and we also checked the conditions of the roads and stuff that went through Sitla. So I did go on a field trip with Sitla and checking the bathrooms and stuff out that they had put in, because they are quite proud of them. They're very expensive and very expensive to maintain, so we can count our blessings that they're there actually, because this is used very much during the hunting season these two unloading places, and very much during the snowmobile and that kind of stuff. There's two areas on just below Dark Canyon Lake. So I went, and then Sitla is now still working on our easements around Tangerine Lane, which we're trying to get Tangerine Lane to pop out and go on to hook up to the loop road, and we have to go through a little chunk of Sitla. They're still working on that, and Benny's been working on that and trying to get it done so we can get that little chunk done. The BLM, what can I say about BLM? They got our wells. The best thing I can do for the wells of I got this map for you, Willie, because it was struggling the other day. This is the Wilson Arch, where the Wilson Arch well is. So you guys can really get a handle on how they're going to do that. And it's now pretty much going to go through. They are going to go from the south end of the road that comes all the way down to Steens Road, Charlie Steens Road, and where the old 191 crossed over. They're going to go through the bottom side of that, come up through the top, and use one of our old bridges that are on our old 191 highway and come in from that back side. And that's what that little drawing shows you.
Where's the well?
Pardon, Willie?
See details.
Well, see the little big thing, the little deal down at the bottom? That's the details they give you. And it shows the area.
Where the well is?
Yeah. And then see up
then
here,
the
then you
water
see up,
line
yeah,
is,
and then see up here where they're gonna drill up. This is a big picture of this. And so they're just showing you what it's gonna look like.
Yeah.
Okay? And then you look right up here, and that's where Wilson Arch is, so
Right.
you can see how far down you are from that. But look how close it is to the road. That's what, and then when they go from the bottom up, then they don't get into our citizens that are involved in that. If they go from the bottom up, instead of, they were going to go from Wilson Arch down on the old road, but they're going to go from the bottom up.
What's this CR 179?
That's what they call that road now, a BLM number or San Juan number. It's the old 191, that C47. See that they have an arrow. That must be on the other map, because there's another arrow that shows 36 miles from Moab and goes all the way down to where they're going to go up, which is the intersection there at Charlie Steens Road and where the 191 crossover.
340 feet.
Yeah.
Plus or minus from the access road.
Mm-hmm.
What's the allowance? 750?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's supposed to take 21 days and they're out of there now. And this is still being questioned by, this is just the latest from the BLM. They haven't really settled on it. This is the latest plan from this Wesco operation people. Okay? At least you now know exactly how close it is, and that's why those people were concerned.
I know where it is.
Okay. I just didn't get that one the way he was talking about it before. Okay.
Just testing you.
Oh, yeah. Don't give me no test, Willie. I haven't got enough time, you know. I'm hustling here.
Yeah, gotta wrap up here soon.
I can see Dave got this clock
Yeah,
going over there.
I do.
Okay, and then on our blueberry stuff over on Indian Creek, or the industrial area, they're going to drill one well on that one location. They're now going to drill 3 wells, so there'll be 3 wells. So 2 of them are going to be probably horizontal, and this is in the industrial park by Indian Rock in the Lisbon Valley.
Indian Creek.
I gave you guys a map of that the last time we met, of the blueberry, and all they've done is added 2 more wells to it. So there'll be 3 wells drilled there by the blueberry people, which is the old gas plant. I used to call it Union Oil. I don't know what it's been called from then. That was actually, it didn't exist at one time. Now they've put it back together and starting it over again. And it's on that industrial site road, the end of it. It goes right to it. Forest Service, they're the same old thing. They got road issues with the heavy snows. they had the road closed to Uwa, which is a heavily fished lake, and so they've opened up one lane because it was completely closed. It was going to take them all year. And they opened it up to one lane so people could use it because they got so many complaints that it wasn't open. The only road really closed now is the Lackey Basin Road, and most time Lackey Basin Road doesn't even get used except during hunting season, so that is not really that big of a deal. But it's closed because of the heavy snow slides sliding down and covering the roads up. You know where
What do you think about talking about Forest Service?
What I think about it?
Propose rule on no more public comment from public or county on their proposed
wilderness and etc.
Forest Service
Yeah.
roads and other developments.
What do I think about it?
Yeah.
I don't think they should be able to do that. I think we should be able to comment at any time. I've worked with that. But that's also, Nick went to a BLM meeting, a special invitation meeting in Price. So he'll probably give you an update on that when he comes up on they're opening up their wilderness stuff. And this has been going on for years. Like, we must have been working on this thing for 3 or 4 years, this wilderness. And so part of that, and part of it should be affected by, this is their latest news release on your fires. This was as of Friday. Read it and weep if you haven't already read it on your internet, on your computer stuff. Can you hand that to Bruce, Kenneth? And then I'll end on that and get out of your hair and let somebody else speak. Nick can speak, but Nick went to a special meeting. Okay?
Thank you.
You're trying to get rid of me again, Willie. Jeez.
You said it. So.
Just tell him to come up. I got the
Thank
seat
you,
warm
sir.
for him. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. If you need me, call me. If you need inside information, call me. Last night, there's a lot of people that, for some reason, didn't even know they could call me and find out stuff, but I got that straightened out last night really good. So it was a good meeting. I'm proud of it.
Good.
Thank you, guys.
Nick Sandberg.
Good morning. Looks like we're running short on time.
That's
I'll just
right.
limit my presentation to one item. You're probably aware that BLM and the Forest Service issued the proposed plan for the Bears Ears Monument. And we're now in a 30-day protest period, which ends August 26th. Now, the county participated as a cooperating agency in the development of this plan, and we feel that most of our suggestions were taken and incorporated into the plan. And the plan is consistent with our San Juan County Master Plan and Resource Management Plan. Now, concurrently with the protest period is the governor's 60-day review period, and that'll go through September the 25th. And in your packet, there's some highlights to the plan as well as some maps that go to those, along with those highlighted items, so you can look at those at your leisure. So basically, that's all I'll say in the interest of time today.
Okay. Well, thank you, Nick.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions or not? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Willie. Bruce? I think Bluff is going into a lumber business or something. This morning they had some logs going into the new development in Cow Canyon, a semi-truck parked right there. It is, my watch says 11:16. I will call this county commissioner meeting to order. Welcome to our County Commissioners meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of San Juan County. As you know that over the news, some terrible incidents has happened to some innocent lives, and it touches you because you have loved ones, you have grandkids, you have kids, you have family. So at the same time, I've been to 2 or 3 funerals, relatives. 2 of my grandkids is down in Hidden Valley between Tuba City and Page. 2 young individuals coming back from work from Kennecott Mine. Last Friday they lost their lives, so we put them to rest. And just yesterday, I realized that in Montezuma Creek, another young individual lost his life in a car accident hauling water. So there's a lot of emotions going on with what happened in Texas. So this morning I just felt like maybe we can do a moment of silence to remember those. Their lives have been cut short. So bear with me and let's do a moment of silence and continue with our meeting. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Commissioners, did you review the minutes of our meetings, the last meeting?
Yes.
I would like to establish a motion. Commissioner Gray has a motion to acknowledge the minutes as they are, and second by Commissioner Adams. Any questions?
That's minutes from the July 2nd, 23rd, and 29th, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. That would be the recommendations.
Okay.
And, if no further ado, call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Unanimously approved the minutes, and we will go down into citizens' comment. Again, we have a time, and any comments that you're making, please remember that if any comments already been made, and if somebody has made those comments, let's not hear it again, and stick with the subject matter that is the work session that we have here today. And if it sounds like somebody is making some personal attack on either one of my commissioners or the audience, I will step in to stop that. So the first one that we have coming up is Shannon Brook.
Before he comes up, can we recognize Larry?
Oh, yes. I'm very sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, as I stated at one time when we had our Commissioner Lyman here, and it's always an honor to recognize an individual that was a leader or a leader that's among you, and it's only appropriate as Native Americans we normally do that. So, you know, we worked with Larry for so many years as a county commissioner, and at this point in time he is working for Congressman John Curtis, and I'm very honored. I feel that I am very honored that he is among us today, and thank you very much for being here with us. Also from not just on chapter, the chapter president, Mr. Hank Stephen, is among us as well, and observing and being here as a support. So thank you very much, Ashanat Ani. Thank you. Okay, now back to order. Shannon?
Morning, Commissioners. I have a couple items. One, I want to invite you to an event that's being held by a group called Citizens of San Juan County. Can you pass it? August 21st, and all the pertinent information is on there. This will be at the San Juan County, or the San Juan High School, excuse me, the Monticello High School. And we invite all three commissioners to attend. Hope you'll be there.
San Juan, Monticello, it's the same thing, isn't it?
It's the same. Okay, my other issue, I'm going to read this. I'm short on time. I want to make sure I get through. Thursday of this week, of last week, I called the county offices to put an item on the agenda for this morning's work meeting. I called at 9:30 and was told that the only person who could put items on the agenda was David Everett, the administrator, but he was not there. So I called again at 10:30 and again found the administrator not in the offices, so I left a message asking to be put on the agenda. Friday morning, David told me that the item would not be accepted. I contacted Commissioner Adams, and soon after I got a call from David, who again told me that I would not be allowed on the agenda. He said the agenda was already too full. I pressed the issue, and then he told me that he would run it past Commissioner Maryboy. Soon after, I was informed that the chair refused to add the item to the agenda. I was told that that only the chairman could set the agenda, but the county website says that if you would like to be on the commission agenda, please contact Natalie Freestone or David Everett and a phone number. All agenda items need to be submitted by noon on Thursday preceding the commission meeting, which is what I was doing. In the proposed commission rules that have not yet been adopted, it states that the administrator prepares the agenda and the chair approves it. Nowhere in the rules does it state that the item needs to be approved to be put on the agenda. Based on how David explained it to me, the chair can disapprove any citizen's proposed agenda item. So it stands to reason that the chair could also shut down any agenda item proposed by other commission members. There are others who have been denied having their items put on the agenda. Currently, in spite of recent suggestions from the public, we have no other means beyond the county commission meetings to share our concerns. Until recently, specifically since the hiring of our new administrator, any citizen could call the county and Tammy and Natalie would put you on the agenda. That's been that way since I've been here, but that's not changed. The agenda item that we wanted to put on was an initiative that we planned to do. It's a new ordinance. We wanted the county to have a chance to look at it, but apparently that's not of interest to the county as we were not allowed to be on the agenda. So we have no choice but to start an initiative, which will happen today. And I just last my time here if you have any questions about that issue.
That was time.
Okay, good. Any questions about that issue?
I'd just suggest maybe that you give the item to David and he can share it with the commissioners.
I've already done that.
And we can get it.
I did that last week.
Okay, let me finish, please. Then we can ask Kendall to do a review and any staff members that need to be involved to do the review of it, and then we can bring it to the commission on a future agenda.
That's great, but I've already done that,
Okay.
and I was
All right.
turned down. So I have to believe that the commission is not interested in reviewing this item, and so we're going to go ahead with the initiative. And
okay,
yeah, okay, great.
Okay. All right, next.
Wendy Black.
Wendy Black.
Bill Love is next.
My name is Wendy Black. I'm from Blanding. When David Everett was hired on, he suggested that he would probably be gone by August or in August. It is now August. I'm wondering where the hiring process is. Anybody?
We're negotiating with some of the people that we've interviewed and should be able to make a decision right away.
Okay. Wanted to know where we were on that. I also requested a cost analysis on the mobile commission meetings. I believe that was July 2nd. I requested that. I'd like to request it again because I never got any response on it. I'd like to know what that is costing the county taxpayers. And the last one, I will be addressing Kenneth on this. In Howchita, the last 2 days, you've had some Democratic meetings. And I understand from multiple phone calls I got that my name was brought up in a very disrespectful manner at those meetings. And I would like to request that if my name is ever brought up at a meeting, from now on, it is in a respectful manner. That's all I have.
Next.
Okay, Bill Love. On deck is Carolyn Daly.
Bill Love.
I have a pleasant item today to talk about. Again, I'd like to thank you for all you've done for the Spanish Valley and your attention to the people's concerns there. We all appreciate it. I'd like to talk about Pack Creek and how to preserve Pack Creek. Pack Creek, to give you some history, drains 1/3 of those Sal Mountains. It drains two 12,000-foot mountains. It is a stream that runs all year in the upper part. It's diverted in the lower part. This year, it has run completely through the valley for probably 4 months. This creek bed is a treasure to this county. It provides this county with an access that could be used 20 years from now to meet the needs of transportation of bicyclists. Moab Grand County wishes they could control their Mill Creek, but they can't. If you do it now, you can control this creek, you can preserve it, and you can save it for future needs. Pack Creek is dry through about 2/3 of that map there. It breaks out again around the golf course in Moab. It flows into a drinking water stream called Mill Creek. It flows into the Colorado River. 32 million people drink that. It's very necessary this creek is not polluted. And in your current proposal on the 191 plan, it passes within 300 or 400 feet, plus or minus, of Love's truck stop. Gasoline. The big thing is 100 trucks sitting on the ground, leaking over time, that will wash into this creek. Every piece of diesel fluids that drain on the ground in Love's will wash into this creek because it's right next door, and it will pollute two drinking water streams, Mill Creek and the Colorado River. You need to set in your proposal that there is no development for 150 feet around both sides of this creek. There will be a proposal written to you on preserving the creek, but every chance you get, preserve this creek. It is a treasure for the citizens of San Juan County, and it is a major, major source of water for irrigation and drinking. It is part of Moab City's aquifer or water system that includes this water aquifer and also includes the San Juan, the mountain aquifer, the Grand Canyon aquifer. So please, every time it comes up, do your best. You need to really have easements on that whole creek from beginning to end. And this could be done. Sidler owns probably 2/3 of it. And the upper end is all owned by BLM and the National Forest. Thank you.
Exactly 3 minutes.
Carolyn Daly.
Carolyn Daly.
Commissioners and Mr. Everett, I attended the workshop held by Landmark yesterday evening on the Highway 191 commercial zone, and I'd like to beg to differ a little bit with Mr. McNeely. Can you?
Not a microphone for here, that's the live stream up.
With Mr. McNeely, that in my opinion it was not a positive meeting, and I was very upset by it. I first want to say we appreciate that Landmark is listening to concerns being voiced by Spanish Valley residents and homeowners and members of the Northern San Juan County Coalition. Nearly 20 coalition members residing in Spanish Valley were present and spoke in support of improving the zoning. However, there were several who didn't want to see any changes. They are developers, real estate agents, and owners of existing which, by the way, are not permitted overnight rentals. Their goal is prioritizing personal financial gain rather than residents' quality of life. Not one of these people went up and looked at the other options being proposed on the boards by Landmark. These people want a Love's truck stop, but they do not care that quality of life and property values of adjacent homes will be impacted. People who have their life savings invested in their homes and could lose everything. They say they don't want Spanish Valley to become like Moab, but at the same time they don't want government control. They can't have both. Without stricter ordinances, there is no question that Spanish Valley will become like Moab, or even worse, a strip of chain motels, tourist condos, and ATV rentals. Most favor a position where overnight accommodations would be allowed upon approval, but not as a use by right, and that's an important difference. I think this is a compromise that is fair to both sides. Also, opponents to the new ordinances do not want to have to go to Moab to shop, but without appropriate ordinances, there will be no businesses for their shopping. Out-of-town developers will continue to bid up the price of land for hotels and tourist accommodations so that local businesses cannot compete. Improved ordinances must be implemented as soon as possible to ensure the development of local businesses that serve the residents and create an attractive shopping area. And lastly, I'm shocked to have to report that Planning and Zoning Commissioner Lloyd Wilson from Spanish Valley openly stated at the meeting that he has invested or speculated on property along Highway 191 and, quote, will lose every penny, quote, if stricter ordinances are imposed. This is a clear conflict of interest, and he should not be allowed to vote on Planning Commission's recommendations. And I even think he should be asked to resign. But Spanish, is that time? Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much. We will now go into the local building authority. So I need a motion by
Make a motion, we go into our local building authority.
Motion by Commissioner Adams to go into the local building authority. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gray Eyes, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Conduct a public hearing to receive input from the public with respect to the insurance of the leases, revenue bonds, and potential economic impacts to the private sector, the construction, the road department, shops, and related facility and funds by such lease revenue bonds. So we are officially in who is
We're just opening it up for public comment.
any comments from the public?
Does I'm not sure everybody understands what the project is. I don't know if you want Benny to come up and describe the project, or if you do.
That
David, or
that would be appropriate. Benny, can you come up and address the community of this
Chairman, can I
project?
just point out that you're actually in a different meeting right now, right?
We are in a different
Yeah,
meeting
I'm just
now.
not sure everybody knows that.
Thank you very much, Shannon, to enlighten his question. We are in a public hearing on the local building authority meeting.
The project that we're proposing and looking for the bond securement on is a.
Stand up and face the audience.
Okay.
Probably hear you better.
Is a public works shop, office, and warehouse space. Currently, the road department Monticello area is in three to five different buildings, depending on what you're looking for, and we are consolidating into one building all of our operations. The buildings that we would vacate are being transferred to fire and EMS for immediate highway frontage access for emergency vehicles, fire trucks, and the nature. And today, the public hearing or the public comment is to verify that there is no private sector looking to provide us this facility, to which we have not received anybody interested in that. So, is that good?
Questions?
Shannon?
Can you tell us where you plan to have this new building?
The new building is located about 500 feet behind the current the office and shop building. It's in our current yard, our maintenance yard.
What's the cost of that you're trying to raise with the bonds?
Well, the total project, I don't know exactly how the bonding numbers work out, but the total project is scheduled and budgeted about $1.8 million, of which approximately 50% is grant from CID.
Anybody else?
I make a motion, we go out of our public hearing.
Motion was made by Commissioner Adams to get out of the public meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gray Eyes. Any last comment or commissioners? If there be none, all those in favor of getting out of the...
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All right, unanimous. Thank you very much. We are out of the local building authority meeting, and we shall continue down to reconvene to the commission meeting. Number 4, approve of the transfer in certain of the real property of Bluff service areas to the town of Bluff, and authorize the removal of the deed reconstructed required commission approval for subsequent transfer.
Make a motion, we transfer the property and remove the deed restrictions to the town of Bluff.
Okay, a recommendation to move with the idea. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Gray Eyes. Do we have any comment to this particular matter? If there be none,
Mr.
David?
Chair, just really quickly, what we'll have you do if you approve is have the minutes reflect that and have you sign the minutes, and then we'll make sure those are somehow associated with the deed moving forward, so there's a clear record of this removal of the restrictions.
Okay, thank you, David. If there be none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Okay, the recommendation that was made will reflect to the approval of this particular item. The next one is number 5, approval to reappoint of
Paul Sondreger.
Huh?
Paul Sondreger.
Paul Sondreger to the Administrative Control Board of San Juan County Health Service District.
I'll make a motion that we reappoint Paul Sondreger to the Administrative Control Board of the San Juan County Health Service District.
Do I have a second to this?
Yes, I will.
Second by Commissioner Gray Eyes. Any other questions or comment? There be none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Approve requests for tax penalty fee abatement. Greg Adams, I guess, if we need more information on that,
Yeah,
do we need? Okay, Greg, could you please come up and give us a detail in depth of what needs to happen here?
The property that we're talking about is in Monument Valley, the Roland LaFont RGJ Corporation property. It was reappraised by the state of Utah. They didn't. I don't know. I didn't think that we were doing that properly, and so they brought down a group of appraisers, and they went down and went through the property and appraised it, and I think they got all the records they could and put an appraisal together and came up with a new value for that property in Monument Valley. And when the tax came out, Roland decided to appeal that, which has been going on and that didn't go through the county. It didn't go through the assessor's office in San Juan County. It went through the state. And I have a letter stating that any appeal or anything to do with that valuation would go back through the State Tax Commission. And so the State Tax Commission and attorneys from Mr. LaFont have been working for about a year, I think, to determine if the value that they came up with was justified and right. So I believe at this point, the tax commission told me there was going to be one more meeting, and then they would settle on whatever the value was. And Mr. LaFont's lawyer called me, and the state called me and said they are about ready to settle. Would the commission or would San Juan County be willing to abate the penalty and interest part of the taxes? They didn't pay those for 2018, and so at this point there's a penalty and some interest. And you saw those I assume in your packets, what the amounts of there, and I can see, having run a business before, that the increase was about double in the value, and so the taxes were about double, and so in their appeal they didn't pay the taxes, and so that's what they're asking. The state said it is totally up to San Juan County whether we abate the penalty and interest, and they're okay with that. Being they had handled the whole thing, I didn't want us to make a decision that was not in line with them.
So basically, moving forward, we're going to receive more taxes from that organization by a significant amount.
Double, at least double,
a significant amount. So with that, I would move to approve the request of our RGJ Corporation to abate the penalties and interest portion owed to San Juan County in the amount of $16,829.68.
Okay, a motion was made by Commissioner Adams with some recommended language to the approving this particular item. Do I have a second?
I'll second with the statement too. I was able to meet with the manager, and the tax payment are being paid, but there's no service. Public safety, roads, being made available from the San Juan County. Nothing.
It's not true, Willie.
That's what they tell me, whether it's true or not. I figure that it has been the practice. So, with that statement, I believe there needs to be some service rendered.
Okay, a second was made by Commissioner Gray Eyes. Also reflect to the record that recommended language is also being inserted, and also the overview is being acknowledged as well. So with that, any other comment before I call for the question? Mr. Adams, if none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Approve the Yazzie subdivision. Walter?
I'll see if I can.
Put it next. Well, that's him too. Go down to number 9.
Go to number 9.
All right, let's go down to number 9, skipping number 7 to 9. approve an out-of-state travel request. David Carpenter. David, you here?
Yes.
All right.
This out-of-state travel is for a conference in Colorado Springs. I've been kind of evaluating this group that I've been a member of. It's the Property Records Industry Association for the last several years. And this is the closest conference that they've held. And usually with the cost of travel and everything, it puts it a little over $5,000. And I figured, well, if I can get one that's close, that can be driven to, that it would be worth it. There's been a lot of industry changes over the last several years in the recorders and record keeping. And there's a movement out there to kind of nationalize the standard. So I think it's important that we as a county be aware of what's going on nationally with the records, land records. And I've got a lot of positive feedback from other recorders that have gone to these conferences over the last several years, and they feel that this is worth the time and energy and money.
Okay.
So.
Commissioners, it sounds like something that's very beneficial to the county.
Go ahead and entertain a motion for.
A motion's been entertained by Commissioner Gray Eyes to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Adams. Any other comments or
Is this
recommendations?
One you presented at the work meeting previously, or is this?
Same
Yeah,
one.
that's what I thought. Okay.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, back to number 7, Walter Burke.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I've got several things. I think the first one on the agenda is the signing of a subdivision plat. This is a piece of property that is down in Blanding. It's a 10-acre parcel, and a Mr. Yazzie subdivided off a 1-acre parcel to build a home. So it went through the Planning Commission last month, so it would have been approved in the July Planning Commission meeting. And they've yet to sign it because the plat wasn't available that night, but they've passed this in the Planning Commission, so now it comes to you to approve the subdivision for the county.
Okay. Commissioners?
Go ahead and vote.
Motion by Commissioner Gray Eyes to
Sign the document.
moved and support the document that needs to be signed.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Adams. And any other comments or questions? There be none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all right.
I got the special pen to hold it, so you just need to sign on that bottom line.
Official pin.
Yeah, the no smear pen. Yep, that sometimes smears. Okay.
Not out of ink.
Thank you for that. The next thing I have some new hires that I need approved. The sheriff's office interviewed late last month for a corrections position. We'd like to offer that position to Herbert Totticini. And I think he's already started, so we need a ratification of that one.
Okay.
Do you want to do these all at once?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just read them into the record.
Okay. The next position, well, we have several positions that we need to fill for election liaisons. We had 3 people apply. We interviewed two of them. We'd like to recommend LCD and Carl Holliday for those 2 positions. We've got a position we need to fill in the health department. It's the director of public health promotion. We did 2 different rounds of interviews for that position. We'd like to recommend Michael Moulton for that position with Shirlene Watson as an alternate. And the last one we had an opening in our Monticello Senior Center for an aide. It's a dual position. It's a full-time position where they're in Monticello and LaSalle. We had an interested employee in-house, and we promoted them in-house to that position. So we'd like to recommend Jay Salibi promoted to be the full-time senior center aide.
Okay. Names and the positions were read into the record to reflect the applicants. So, commissioners, I will need a motion and a second.
Move, I'll move.
Motion by Commissioner Gray Eyes to move on, moving forward with the applicants, the names and the positions, and do I have a second?
I'll second the motion to hire the people that have been interviewed and recommended by Human Resources.
Thank you very much. Second by Commissioner Adams. Any other last questions or comment to the positions or individuals, if there be none? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. David?
Okay, I just had a few items to update you on. Actually, Walter, one of them is part of your world. We still have a planning commission vacancy, right?
Yes, we do.
Commissioners, if you want to think about filling that, it's your appointment. So at some point, it'd probably be good to fill. Just want to make sure that was on your radar.
Do we have applicants?
I don't know if we have any applicants yet.
I haven't received any.
Yeah. So we should, maybe we could publicize that a little bit, solicit for that.
Yeah. Regarding those county appointments or boards, how many vacancies do you have?
Throughout all the boards?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to look into that question. I'm familiar with the planning commission, know there's one vacancy there, but I can look into the rest of our boards and see what we're lacking.
I mean, I think generally the department that has the relevant board, like if it's the library board or the health department, they're pretty good about staying on top of vacancies like that. So, I don't think there's a ton of outstanding.
There may be one or two here and there, but
Special service districts.
sure. But I can look into that.
And then, thanks, Walter. The other items I just had is quick update items. One is that UDOT has requested that the county participate with a little bit of funding for a regional transportation planning effort that they are conducting in essentially from I-70. My understanding is it's from I-70 south to LaSalle Junction. And so they're asking that the county chip in a little bit. UDOT would pay for the vast bulk of it. It's almost more of a, I would say, gesture of good faith to fund it a little bit. I think they were asking, we were saying around $5,000 maybe for this study as a contribution. And my understanding is it's probably a $100,000 study total. So told them that I would check in with you all about that, whether that was acceptable or not. If anybody, is that okay?
Yeah. I-40 to where?
I-70.
I-70 to?
Probably down to, I think, LaSalle Junction. So just that major 191 corridor going through Spanish Valley primarily is the biggest focus. And that ties into a lot of the land use planning actually that Landmark was talking about with access roads along the highway and coordinating all that in a more comprehensive manner. And then the last thing was just simply a reminder that our next meeting is in Bluff. It's a joint Town of Bluff San Juan County Commission meeting, and so that will be happening down at Bluff at our regularly scheduled time of 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Third Tuesday.
Any other
Yes.
comment, commissioners?
Regarding the financial requests, would like to see the map
Okay.
of the rock.
Sure.
Good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Commission report. Either one of you want to go first?
Sure. the county fair opened Saturday. Commissioner Kerry Gibson, Commissioner of Agriculture, and his deputy assistant came down and helped me cut the ribbon and welcome everybody to the fair. It goes on all this week and will end Saturday night with the family and youth rodeo, and invite everybody to attend the events going on, not only today but all throughout the week. Anna's done an amazing job, and things are running fairly smoothly. I appreciate the work that she's done. I will be attending this week on Thursday the regularly scheduled Community Impact Board meeting in Salt Lake. So I'm going up Wednesday night, come home Thursday. I'll get on the Indianapolis 500 in Salt Lake and race back to Monticello as fast as I can, because there's a concert that night here at the rodeo grounds, and if you haven't picked up your tickets for the concert, you need to. It's one of my favorite Navajo performers, Easton Corbin. No, he's not a Navajo performer. He's the latest and greatest country western performer, and he's really, the youth really like him. So I'm not sure when of. Well, you're kind of young, Kenneth, but me and Willie are kind of old.
Yeah.
But Thursday night is that fantastic concert, and then I have a USIP board meeting on the 15th in Salt Lake. There is a Utah Communications Authority board meeting in Salt Lake on the 19th, 5 o'clock at Little America. Probably won't be able to go to that because we have a commission meeting the next morning in beautiful Bluff. So with that, that's all I have to report.
Case report, Bruce. Commissioner Realize. Oh, David?
Sorry, just a quick point of order. Commissioner Adams probably didn't want to brag on it, but the CIB board did award the county, I think it was about $740,000 nearly for the purchase of EMS vehicles.
3 new ambulances.
3 new vehicles, which is a big deal. They don't usually give out cash like that.
Oh, it was just an accident.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how it happened.
It's been the quality of the application, I'm sure.
It was the...
But then also, an emergency ask was made that was also approved by the board for some additional funding for unforeseen additional construction costs associated with the senior center.
Yeah, $75,000 grant.
Yeah, so those were big wins for the county.
Thanks.
Okay. Realize.
My report on the July 26th, Bruce and Mr. Maryboy and myself and others went on the tour to Gooseneck and received information on the expansion plan. I'm going to stretch the visitor center down the area due to increase in visitation. I assume they're going to put in some structures that would accommodate the overnight stayers and separate these temporary or half-day visitors. So half-day visitors, they say they're real rowdy, or overnight, or the same, and they don't want to interfere each other over the campground. So that's what happened. The national or the state parks expansion plan. Then on the 29th, we had a special meeting of the county commissioner here. We didn't finalize the decision before, so we did finally got around to it. The 30th, I had 7 county infrastructure representative down to Navajo Mountain to view with the media, to view the proposed route from looking at from the top of Paiute Canyon down into the east side of the canyon. So possibility of if I can push it along, hopefully there'll be a connection down there. So, but I hear that there's some no, that type. This has been going on. I think that could be turned around. August 3rd, we had the annual 54th annual gathering of the Ehene, which is remembrance of people, leaders, tribal leaders that have been cleared the way, made a path for the Navajo Mountain community. They devoted their energy and time. So that was the recognition gathering. I don't know how many people we had. Mr. Haight Stevens would have a better count because I know how to count. Only up to 10. He's responsible to count from 10 on to whatever he learned. So it was a good idea and a good rekindling of friends and relations to a lot of people. I don't know how many horses. Some group of riders came all the way from Chambers, Arizona. So that's how we sponsored them. Yesterday I had the privilege of attending a overflight to the proposed oil and gas lease or sales in September. And also did the air and also did the ground site tour. And revealed quite interestingly, there's a lot of activities going on. Mainly one of them down here at the foot of White Mesa community. An excavation is going on of some bone dinosaurs. And I didn't even know until they say, yeah, we've been here how many years? 5 years? Something like that. 5 or 7 years. And have different parts of the bone they're excavating, and I thought it was what did they call it? Bluebird flower that they were plastering those objects. Found out that it's something like plaster rather than a dough. So interesting. Another part is the stone riding on the walls and a hogan of prehistoric hogan. Those two areas are definitely within proposed site for oil and gas there, right immediately adjacent to it. And then I thought about the aquifer. There's other sites that we visited, so how damaging would it be to projects like that to continue? I figured the aquifer, the drainage from here, the recharge of the aquifer that is serving Bluff will be question, big question, if such is the case. I even went to as far as questioning the ponds, retaining ponds that are being built around the wells, and they didn't know. What are they lined? Because when you spill an oil, eventually it'll soak into the ground. If they're lined, then some protections are there. So those types of questions are still up in the air, and they're going to see if they can find some answers to it. So that's the extent of my report. Yeah.
Good
Thank you.
report. Thank you, Willie. I don't have a whole lot to report, but we did met with the president. We all got there from Tistas Bus, Anna, Mexican Water, Red Mesa, and other chapters. We all showed up at the president's office, and they told us that he just barely left and he's got to be somewhere else. But we met with the staff. The topics were the roads, the joining with the San Juan County on writing signing the IGA and the MOU, and also the police issues, and the other issues were the trust fund. But this week we're supposed to be meeting with the president, coming down to Mexican Water chapter, and he is talking about meeting with the road department and us to see if we can get that IGA going and moving. So we came back and really upset, but nevertheless we'll just have to do what we have to do when he comes down. And then, other than that, I've been to about 2 funerals. That just kind of kept me busy out of all those times, and I will be meeting with the Bluff meeting tonight at 6 o'clock. So other than that, there's some trips that we do have. Planning on meeting with David Hinkins up in Salt Lake. So sometime next week I'll be headed up to meet with David Hinkins. So that's the extent of my report, and thank you. Motion?
I'll make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss pending and reasonable imminent litigation, and then to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual.
Motion's made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second?
Aye.
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 Okay, we are going into executive session, so please,
That's true. takes.